Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Justice Guzman, we are live and on YouTube and ready to start when you are.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome to our first commission meeting of 2021. Like you, I would prefer to see you all in person, but it's great to be together this morning in this virtual format. We are accommodating the pandemic by continuing our work on behalf of Texas children, youth, and families. We're coming together as a community. We're coming together as stakeholders in our future. As we approach a one-year mark since the COVID-19 virus turned our world upside down, I'm very proud of how far we've come as a state to provide continued access to justice for children and families. We have on the call today many of you who have led efforts in the courtroom, in your communities, to continue to ensure our children are safe and to continue to work to improve their outcomes. There have been challenges and there have been setbacks, but our healthcare professionals, our child welfare workforce, our judges, our lawyers, our advocates, and many others have worked tirelessly to address the needs of children and families. In the midst of COVID last week, we faced an unprecedented power and water crisis. Like so many of you, I sat in my home cold and without running water. And the experience for me, though, was a stark reminder of the intense traumatic experiences of children and families who experience food and housing insecurities and who struggle to meet their daily needs. It really just allowed me to think even more focused on what we need to do, what we have to continue to do to protect our families. We're in this together, but we must continue to strengthen our partnerships to support those that are most vulnerable. Our work and our daily lives look very different. And I have no doubt that we will emerge from the crisis stronger than ever because we're in this together. We come here today, we've got a full meeting today. We have special guests, we have commissioner updates. We hope to hear from Collaborative Council. We've got a Children's Commission staff led by our new director, Jamie Bernstein, and Assistant Director, Milbury, who've worked every day in and day out, to ensure that we don't miss a beat in terms of serving our children and being here for you as the support system and the resource that we are. So let me begin with talking a little bit about what we're going to hear today. More specifically, we have a guest presentation in the agenda by Ms. Jen Sines, and I'll introduce her at that time. But I appreciate her being with us. And before we begin our updates, a few housekeeping matters. To accommodate a virtual format, the meeting will end today no later than 1 p.m. and will not be taking any breaks. But take your breaks and just check the agenda to make sure you're not next on the speaker lineup. Please remain on mute unless you are speaking. And I think if you step away and turn off your video, it allows us to know that you're not on the call right at the moment. Committee and Collaborative Council members are participating in listen-only mode, but we're broadcasting this meeting live. And so I think you can use the chat button to let us know, if you want to weigh in or if you have a comment. The question and answer format is also available if needed. To comply with our grant requirements, Commission staff will distribute an electronic match form after the conclusion of the meeting. And essentially, thank you for helping us make this virtual meeting as seamless as possible. And there are always technology issues to deal with. And just when you think you've mastered it, something new presents itself. So thanks so much to all of you for logging on and for joining us today. So let's turn to tab 1 and page 9 in the PDF that you have before you. It's the meeting notebook that was distributed in advance of the meeting. And And the document includes commission, committee, and collaborative council membership, as well as staff. I'm going to highlight a few changes for you. Cindy Patrick, who served our commission so well and was always such a great contributor, and we so appreciated the opportunity that we had to work with her, but she has accepted a new role as Vice President for Development Partnerships with the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute. Since then, Dr. Blau, who already represents the Meadows on this commission, has come in and taken Ms. Patrick's place on the commission. We're grateful to Cindy Patrick for her many contributions, as I mentioned, and thank her for continuing leadership and involvement in the statewide collaborative on trauma-informed care. So thank you, Cindy Patrick. If we were live, we would all applaud, but there's no reason, applaud you and thank you. And I guess we can do it here. Thanks, Cindy. Then we have Therese Stevenson, who joins as a new commissioner to continue to represent the philanthropy sector. Therese is the Vice President of Grants for the Rees Jones Foundation. Therese, it is a pleasure to have you join the Children's Commission, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. And so let me find you on the gallery here.
Thank you so much. And I just have to agree. Cindy has been a personal friend of mine and obviously a peer in philanthropy for many years. And she is an amazing person. So I follow her very humbly in serving on the commission. So thank you. I did want to tell you a little bit more about the Rees Jones Foundation and my position, because we have a very strong interest in child welfare. Our total foundation is focused on issues concerning the most vulnerable children. So child welfare is obviously very big for us. But in addition to that, other issues that create challenges for children and families, including mental health concerns, disability, challenges in advancing, healthy families. And then we do a lot of just general youth experiences, youth development work. So that's kind of our interest specifically. So we have been working, particularly in our Region 3 where we're based, although we are focused statewide related to child welfare. We've been very invested in helping work in the rollout of community-based care in our region, and also helped establish the Rees Jones Center for Foster Care Excellence at Children's Health here in Dallas, as well as being very active in our Region 3 Child Welfare Consortium. So it's going to be really great to be in this group and listen to wisdom and experience, and thank you so much. I also want to say personally, I am a child appointed special advocate and a board member of Dallas CASA. I also am on the advisory board for the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development. So I'm really honored to take Cindy's place, and I hope to serve you very well.
Well, thank you so much, Therese. Again, we're just delighted to be able to work with you and collaborate with you. And the Rees Jones Foundation is known in Texas and throughout the country for its philanthropy and for its efforts at achieving systemic change. So we're just thrilled to have you on board. Thanks so much for the introduction and to Rees Jones. Thank you. And so now we have a new commissioner who rose to fame pretty quickly, but I'm glad to say that we had invited him to join the commission before his Twitter notoriety. But many of you saw the cat video where Judge Ferguson had a lawyer with a filter, and he handled it so elegantly and so gratefully and with so much empathy for what can go wrong when we're appearing live. I can't imagine anyone handling it any better. But he is indeed a leader in his community, on the bench, in the child welfare community, and also in the issue of virtual trials. So Judge Roy Ferguson is judge of the 394th Judicial District Court. He has quickly distinguished himself as a state and national expert on virtual hearings, as I mentioned, and he also brings a deep knowledge of West Texas and the needs of rural communities. Judge Ferguson, I extend a warm welcome, and if you have a moment, would you introduce yourself, please? We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Justice Guzman, not only for the introduction, but for inviting me to join this group and for everything you do for Texas children. Very briefly, the issue about the cat video, the great thing about it has been the smiles that it brings, and watching all of you on one screen. As soon as she said it, you all smiled. And it's just this wonderful thing to be associated with. I don't claim any credit for it. It's just so great to be a part of it and to be associated with it. But it pales in comparison to being associated with a group with legendary names in child welfare law like Sakai and O'Neill and Rucker and Guzman. The honor of that is something that just overwhelms me. And I look forward to learning from you and bringing my energy and my passion for child welfare law and taking care of Texas children to the group, however the group sees fit. So I'm excited to join you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Ferguson. And we've already put the judge to work. He is leading our efforts to create a virtual trial bench book for child welfare cases, along with Karen Crump, some of you on this commission and other leading experts. So we, again, truly appreciate that work ethic and that spirit that you bring to everything. Now let's go to committee membership changes on tab 1. And there are no membership changes to the committees at this time. But regarding the subcommittees, as you'll see, Judge Shelton has taken the helm of the Foster Care and Education Committee. Judge Mireles serves as co-chair of the Human Trafficking Judicial Work Group with Judge Amy Larson. Very important work that they've undertaken. And as I mentioned, Judge Ferguson is chairing the work group on the bench book. And so I invite you to take a look at those so that you can keep track of what's going on at the commission. We anticipate naming a chair of the Legal Practice and Process Committee at the next commission meeting. And let me just say this to all of our commissioners: if you have an interest in taking a stronger leadership role, contact Jamie, contact me, and let us know. There is the best committee chairs are the ones that want to be there, that volunteer themselves, and that can really have that vision for how they can contribute to this important work. So please volunteer if you're so inclined. Then we'll go to collaborative council member changes, also on tab 1. There are no member changes at this time. But collaborative council members were asked to submit written updates or request to speak in advance. And during that section of the agenda, those members who requested to speak will give updates. And as I've mentioned many times, we really, really appreciate the input of our collaborative council members. You are a vital and critical part of the work that we do. Thank you to those of you who have asked to speak today. We look forward to hearing from you later in the meeting. Now let's go to staff member changes. Willette Sedgwick joined the Children's Commission as an accountant in November. Ms. Willette brings over a decade of accounting experience, and we are fortunate to have Patrick and Willette to assist with the administration of the Federal Court Improvement Program grant. As you know, that is our bread and butter. So welcome, Willette. And Willette, I think you're on the call. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good morning, all. I'm Willette, and again, yes, I've been with the state for over 12 years. I look forward to working with everyone.
All right, well, thank you, welcome. So glad to have you on board. And so let's turn to tab 2, everyone. and that's the minutes from our last virtual meeting. So for purposes of the record and so that we can note our votes appropriately on this YouTube format, we're going to have an audible vote, and you can raise your hand if you'd like to, but the minutes from September 18th, 2020 were distributed behind tab 2 in advance of the meeting. Everyone has had the opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the minutes from the September 2020 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Judge Byrne, and who was Vicky Spriggs? Thank you, Vicky. All right, so we have Vicky Spriggs and Judge Byrne. All in favor, say aye.
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 Or raise your
Aye.
hand. Okay, and this is
Aye.
critical. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are adopted. Thank you all very much. And now we move on to, hope I can hold it together during this part, but it's recognition of Judge Dean Rucker. And last month I was on a very peaceful morning walk, enjoying how quiet and lovely the morning was, and reflecting on the year that it's been, and how we've come together during this year. And I think each of you could tell a story about how coming together and working together has changed your life or someone else's life. But during that walk, I got a call from Judge Dean Rucker, and he said, do you have a few minutes? And I said, yes, of course. And I was very sad, but also very happy for him. He told me that after 13 years of leadership, he didn't use the word leadership, I did. He told me that after 13 years of service, and I said, you mean leadership and guidance and being our support system. That's what you really mean. And he said he decided it was time for him to step down from the Children's Commission. And, I was saddened by the news, because since I have been involved with the commission, Judge Rucker has been our rock and our strength, along with several others, and you know who they are. But Judge Rucker has led with such a selfless spirit. He has never said no. If I call him, during Harvey, I called him during the early days of the pandemic. Judge Rucker, what do you think? What could we do? Here's what, the order we may have to issue. He was there day and night, and he's given us so much to the state, to the commission, but especially to our children. He's done this work because he has a heart for every child in Texas, and especially those in the child welfare system. He has served as a commissioner, as a jurist in residence, as our legislative person. We've, as I said, relied on his sage advice, his incomparable legislative updates, his sound guidance on what works and what doesn't. He's innovative. He's improved the state in countless ways, and we will have a proper tribute to Judge Rucker when we're able to come together. But let me just say, on behalf of all of us in the Supreme Court of Texas, our Chief Justice Nathan Hecht, all of my colleagues, thank you. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, the passion that you've shared with us and with everything you've ever touched. I know we'll continue to work together in your capacity as a presiding judge. So this isn't a goodbye, and you promised you would take my calls. You said you would, and everybody on YouTube is now listening to this. But we just want to say thank you and express our gratitude. We will have a party, we will have a cake, we will have a certificate, we will have speeches, but I didn't want to let this moment go by without hearing from at least a few of our commissioners. And I'm going to invite Judge Hoffman and Judge Cooley, but anyone else, we need to keep our comments relatively brief so that we're done by 1. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to hear from some of our commissioners who've known you and worked with you throughout this time. So I am going to hand over the virtual mic to Judge Hoffman. Judge Hoffman.
Thank you, Justice. Good morning, everybody. There's about 30 million people, but I guarantee you that if any one of them called you from a phone, you would never mistake them for Judge Dean Rucker. When I think about all of our former Jefferson residents, Judge Spisha, like Judge Ferguson mentioned, Judge Sage, and now Judge Rucker, I realize, Piper, that just based on Texas accents alone, you and I have a lot of work to do. But if there's ever any doubt of who's calling you, it's cleared up when Judge Rucker calls and says, Rob, Dean Rucker here. How are you doing, buddy? I already missed that, Judge. I don't know if there's going to be a Dean Rucker building on the Capitol grounds, maybe one day, or maybe even a memorial Dean Rucker Avenue in Midland. And it's probably a Class C misdemeanor in Texas to talk about a state official this way. But as far as I'm concerned with you, Judge Rucker, it's not about those big things. It's about the little things. And there are millions of them in Texas, and they all have a name. All those millions of little Texans who live better lives because of the work that you've done for them and for us. Thank you so much for everything. Congratulations. Thank you, Justice Guzman.
Thank you very much, Judge Hoffman, for sharing those words. And as I said, we all share that sentiment. Judge Coley.
Well, I'd be honest. I thought this was a roast format, Judge Rucker. And so the things I was going to say, I'll have to save for our in-person celebration of your service. But in all seriousness, it's just really kind of hard to put into words the impact you've had. I mean, I think that if we sat down and really put together a timeline of the evolution of child welfare work in Texas and the progress it's made, you've been the leader of this effort through your work for so long. Your fingerprints are going to be on this work forever. And that's really neat. I mean, I can't tell you how many times since I've been on the bench, someone said, we need to call Judge Rucker. You need to call Judge Rucker. And before I knew who you were, I was like, this, and he'll tell you, I've called him Yoda a million times because everybody talked about him like he knew everything before I ever met him. And then once I got to know you, I realized, well, you kind of do know everything. And the absence of that resource is our loss, but I'm excited for you. And I've told you how much I'm going to miss you. But I tell you that we're just so thankful, and the state and the kids, like Rob said, the impact you've had in shaping this work to benefit our children, just really, you can't put it into words. And so I'm going to stop trying to, but I just thank you for all you've done. And on behalf of all the judges whose calls you've taken and advice you've given to them, I just can't tell you how thankful we are to have you as a judicial resource, not only through the words you speak, but through your actions and how you've conducted yourself and everything you do. Thanks so much, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. Do we have someone else on the call that wants to weigh in? Like I said, we're having a big party to celebrate someone who is worthy of our celebration and honor. David Slayton, I see you on the call. Are you trying to weigh in?
I'll save mine for my report later today. I'll speak to it.
Okay, wonderful. All right then. Unless I see one of those little virtual hands go up, we're going to save our remarks for the big event. Thank you all so much. Judge Rucker, though, before I move on, can we please hear from you one last time, something? I see you down there on my screen.
Well, I'm very touched, and thank you all for your kind words. And Justice Guzman, under your superb leadership, the past 10 years, the Children's Commission has found itself as a recognized leader in child welfare in Texas and in the nation. And I'm grateful for all the support you've given me over the years. And unless nobody forget this, when Justice Guzman calls, you answer your phone. And our success at the commission didn't happen by accident. It's been the product of hard work, sage counsel of our commissioners, the collaborative counsel, the labor of our staff, and all the committees and volunteers. And all these people have invested hundreds, if not thousands, of hours working toward the common goal of improving the child welfare system. I'm honored to have played a small part in that. And it's been a wonderful journey. We have a bench that is deep in leadership, ranging from the Texas Supreme Court to our child protection associate judges and all levels in between. We've intentionally nurtured the best of the best among our judges as leaders. And I'm proud to inform you the Jurist in Residence program will go on even better under the able leadership of Rob Hoffman and Piper McCraw. They're ready. They're up to the challenges that will present themselves over the next decade, and we couldn't be in better hands. And I do want to give some special thanks as well to some outstanding persons who made my years with the commission some of the most memorable in my career. Tina Amberboy was the right leader at the right time when she accepted the position of executive director 13 years ago. And she gave me the freedom and the grace that I needed to fulfill my duties. And she fostered a legacy of excellence, trust, and collaboration that continues today. And when it came time for Tina to spread her wings and accept new challenges, Justice Guzman made the inspired choice of Jamie Bernstein as our new executive director. She ably took the baton from Tina, and even in a year full of COVID-19 challenges, Jamie has excelled in her work with grace, humility, unquestioned competence, and thoughtful deliberation, and how fortunate we are to have her leading us. And then finally, I want to thank personally each and every member of the Children's Commission staff. I prefer to call them our A-team, for your support, your patience, for teaching me more about child welfare than I could have ever imagined. Each of you were chosen for your work, and our trust and reliance on your talents has been rewarded time and time again. You've tackled important issues like training and education, legal representation, dual status cases in courts, trauma-informed care, improving educational outcomes for children in foster care. You have beautifully created the print and digital materials that tell the world how we're fulfilling our mission. You've staffed our voluminous meetings and managed our grant with great care and vision. And each of you is the best of the best, and I'll always be eternally grateful for everything you've done, not only for me, but for the Children's Commission. And as this chapter in my life closes, I just want you to know this is not goodbye. Instead, to each of you, I say, God be with you till we meet again. Love y'all.
Gosh, we love you too, Judge Rucker. And it's not goodbye. Please, everyone, a virtual applause for Judge Rucker. Seriously, what eloquent words. And again, we will continue to look for you as our someone that we treasure, admire, and look to for guidance. So thanks for your lovely words. And you touched on this, but I'm going to make the formal announcement. And so, as I said, I was sad for Judge Rucker, but very happy for him to move on to this next phase, but also very happy that with his departure, we can announce leadership that we have full trust and confidence and faith in, and that Judge Piper McCraw from Collin County, She has accepted an appointment as jurist in residence. And so congratulations, Judge McCraw. We're very excited that you bring your wisdom and your knowledge and your passion to this important work. And then we have a promotion. As I said, sad news, happy news. Judge Hoffman has been promoted to our senior jurist in residence. He's been trained by the very best, as you've been hearing about. So congratulations, Judge Hoffman, on your new title as senior jurist in residence. We're so pleased to have you, and we're confident that our JIR program will continue to serve as a model for the nation, and that our commission will continue to benefit from their experience of our two exceptional judicial leaders. And now we move on to a section of the meeting that is really the heart of why we come together on a quarterly basis. And that's to learn from each other, to be inspired by the work that each of us is doing in our respective communities. And those are the commissioner updates, where each commissioner, for those of you that are new, gives a commission report. It's a highlight of our meeting because we grow in this process. We learn what's going on across the state. That informs the work that we do through our committees. It informs our strategic plans, and it allows us to take what you're doing and apply it more broadly. So if there are questions during the updates, please use the raise hand feature, and we will pause the conversation. The dialogue that goes on during these commissioner updates is some of the most important dialogue that we engage in. And I'm going to call you in alphabetical order, beginning with Judge Rosie Alvarado.
Good morning. Thank you, Justice Guzman. I do have a lot of really wonderful things to report that are happening in Bexar County. And I would just like to say, being part of this commission now, having started at the last meeting, Justice Guzman, your words about growth and connect are so true. During that meeting, I was able to connect with Judge Selena Mireles during that time, and she very kindly put me in touch with folks at TCU so I could go on to get training in their program at the Karen Purvis Institute. And I went through the trust-based relational intervention training so we could implement that with our programs. So I think your words ring very true in that regard. But also connecting and educating each of us regarding our various work in our jurisdiction. So just to kind of briefly sum up what we're doing in Bexar County right now, back in 2015, we started a redesign project of our children's court programs. Bexar County has a total of 6 children's court programs and 1 pilot program that is going on right now. We have our family drug court, which rehabs families who have substance abuse issues. We have our early childhood intervention court, which assists with continued family bonding through the CPS process, as well as addresses early childhood development. We have our Pearls and our Eagles court. The Pearls court is one of the courts that I co-preside over with Judge Angelica Jimenez, and we address with young women ages 14 to 18 that are in PMC and are aging out of foster care, basically trying to do foundational principles for them, so that way as they age out, they can land on their feet and continue to go once the support of the department is no longer there. We also have launched Eagles Court. I think at the last meeting I had told you we had just implemented that. And that is the Young Men in those programs. It's very similar to Pearls. Judge David Canales is guiding those young men in that program. We have our Family Preservation Court. We call it our SAPSER Court. And that goes towards preventing removal. So in lieu of terminations, we are creating custody orders to keep family units together. So that would perhaps include aunts and uncles and grandparents in those situations where the nuclear family unit may be in crisis. We have our PMC project, which is our normalcy project. And that basically is to ensure that the kids that are in foster care, we have funding available to ensure that they have normal life experiences like piano lessons or getting to go take the SAT or participating in sports. So that's been a very successful program, and we do a lot of crossover work with PMC Project with Eagles and Pearls. And then recently, we added our College Bound docket. This is our pilot program. We have funding from the state legislature, and this is basically to assist those children that are aging out to utilize their ability to go to college. As you know, the state provides a state school education for our children, and only 3% of them use it. So the goal of that is to get more of them involved, identify those children, and assist them in that process. So I can report that our first graduating class of 22 seniors are all now enrolled in college. And that is our College Bound docket. So we're really excited about that. Also, as a redesign that we did, like I said, we were doing this back in 2015 is when we started. We commenced a metric study during that time as well. And so our 5-year report just came out. And outside of course, our 2020 COVID blip, which of course increased numbers across the board, I think for many, we were able to see decreases in ad litem fees, decreases in removal, decreases in the numbers of hearings that were heard and filings that were had. In the last 3 years, we were able to reunite 2,200 families and also at the same time have 2,200 adoptions commenced. And I'm rounding these numbers. We also saw a decrease in the number of foster youth that were aging out of care. And in part, that is because of the programs that we have, the Family Preservation SAPSR docket that I had indicated, as well as our Pearls and Eagles programs. We're seeing adoptions out of that. So as far as on a future basis, I would like to report, and then I will cede to Justice Guzman, that I think in our last meeting, I referenced that we were looking at adding a family violence component to our court system with respect to children's court. That has evolved a little bit since then. We are now going to be starting the civil family violence prevention program that will be universal through all of our 14 civil district courts. But we will be receiving funding for family violence concentrated staff positions, which in part will serve our children's court programs as well. So we're incredibly excited about that. Additionally, we are working on creating a set of manuals. We already have our task committee that has been put in place for that set of manuals to generate basically a how-to manuals on our Pearls and Eagles court. So that way, if there's anyone interested in other jurisdictions in launching courts similar to our Pearls and Eagles courts, that we can share those manuals with you and give you some direction on where you can get funding and work with community partnerships to launch those type of courts. So we're really excited about the work we're doing. And I am incredibly excited to be a part of this this group here as we continue to grow and connect. So thank you very much.
It's a fantastic update. Personally, my motto is less government, more community, and you are really breathing life into those words with your all of the programs, the innovative ways that you're bringing community together to increase reunifications and lessen removals and strengthen support systems. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Others on. All right, if there aren't any discussions, if there isn't any discussion, then we will hear from, if she's on the call, Colonel Batchelor, are you here? Okay, then we will move on to Corey Benbow, if Corey's here. All right, Paula Bibb Samuels.
Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? Don't answer because y'all are muted. Well, I wanted to let you all know that the statewide parent collaboration group continues to meet quarterly, And all of the parent liaisons are still holding meetings in their regions, but we are doing it virtually, either through, I think it's GoToMeeting and Zoom. And we are having participation. I will say personally in Region 1, we have a lot of participation, which I'm actually shocked. And so anyway, I'll talk about what I would like to do with that later, because obviously Region 1 is fairly large. And I know some of our other regions are large, and then you have your like suburbs, and it's kind of hard to get into one place, into the city at 6 or 7 at night, and then get back with some of the parents that we deal with. And so because the pandemic forced us to have a different way of meeting with our parents, I think this will be a good way that we can continue meeting with those parents who are in those rural areas, or like, you know, like us in Region 1. I don't even know how many miles it crosses, but I know Amarillo is a part of it, and Amarillo is 2 hours away from Lubbock. So, and that's just one of the areas. And so I think this will be a good way to continue to reach parents for that. But I guess I'll have to propose that formally somewhere someday soon. But also the statewide parent collaboration group developed the orientation guide for the PCG advisory committee. And then they had the transition of new CPS liaisons onto the statewide PCG. I think I told you all before, some of us had been on that statewide group forever. And so they had to transition us off and transition new people in. And so Region 3E, Region 3W, 6B, good Lord, R7, R8, R9, and R10 had some CPS liaisons that was transferred on. And so they've done that. CPS requested our inputs from parents in regards to the training topics for the caseworkers. I think I mentioned that last time. And so some of the things that the parents wanted the onboarding, the new CPS caseworkers to kind of be aware of, was how important it is for the caseworkers to engage parents, to empower them to be successful. As you all know, oftentimes parents feel like CPS is the enemy. So the caseworker is the enemy. And so CPS, the caseworkers end up operating in a different way than they have to. And so what we've decided is to let them know that we would like them to basically partner with us, because that's really what we need anyway, because I believe that the goal is the same. The goal for CPS is to have the children in a safe environment. The goal for the parent should be to have the children in a safe environment and hopefully with them. And so because of that, if we can engage them and empower them to be, the parents to be successful, it would help. We also wanted to explain the importance of, the what, the why, and the how of the family plan. I don't know how many times we have our monthly meetings regionally and parents don't understand why they're having to do certain things. And so it's hard when you don't know all the intricate details of a case to try to explain to them why this is needed. Sometimes, because if you have substance abuse, I know why they sent you to a substance abuse class, but sometimes it's kind of hard. And so for the caseworker to take that time out to say, this is why you have to go here, this is why this is suggested, it would help the parents to better receive what we're requiring. Well, I say we, I'm not a CPS caseworker, what CPS is requiring them to do. And then there were a few other things like how important it is to train parents on their rights, because parents don't know their rights during a CPS case. I know it can seem detrimental to a CPS caseworker to let a parent know you can do this, you can do that, but that would actually help garner that partnership versus the me against you. Let them know what they're able to do. Some of us, we don't know, and the whole process of having a CPS case is overwhelming and daunting, and we already feel that CPS wants our children. And so if you tell me that I actually have rights, that could actually help with me working through the process of my case. So let's see, the parent perspective. We want the caseworkers to have a parent perspective as far as a parent that is involved with CPS. We don't know how that's going to work because obviously they don't have a CPS case, so they would not be working for CPS. And then we want them to know how important it is to understand the trauma of having a child removed and how it feels to be stigmatized. I don't believe that is something that, we don't believe that is something that CPS really considers. Excuse me. We know that we talk about trauma-informed care and things like that, but really putting it on, like if your child was removed from your family, how would that look? How would that affect the child? And to really think about that. With the first commissioner that spoke, and I'm sorry, I did not get your last name. I put A on my paper. And that's just horrible, but that was the first letter of your last name. But but what, she mentioned how they're trying to basically prevent removals. And so, and I'm just like, that's what we need. If at all possible, we need to prevent the removals of children, or at the very least to be able to place them with family or close friends, because that does minimize the trauma. So we're also trying to get some other training topics to cultural humanity and responsiveness, as well as sensitivity. And so obviously those will be ongoing because, CPS has so many people that come on, move up, come back on, do other things. So we just kind of want to make sure that the goal or the focus is not just, let's do this, parents, do this, and get it right. But really the focus is all embracing of the family unit itself. That's the general report. Also, I was a part of the Thriving Families, Safer Children Round 2 kickoff. That's a whole lot to say, but that was on February the 24th. And it was with the Texas Race Equity Empowerment Improvement Team. And that was a very eye-opening experience. It was individuals from all over the United States, because the CTA, the Alliance, actually put that on. And so it was individuals from all over the United States. And it was talking about basically how can we help improve race equity within our personal areas or personal areas of influence. And so they gave a lot of information, they gave a lot of suggestions, and we're still meeting, obviously, nothing is done quickly. But I did want you all to know that, they're working on this across the nation. And also on yesterday, I've been a part of a lot of Zooms, by the way. I was a part of a policy webinar, and in that for Birth Parent National Network. And they also talked about different things that are changing with policy. They talked about the Family First Prevention Act, and I may not be saying, I know it's FFPSA or something like that. And so they talked about that as well. Now, one thing I'm going to say, it shocked me that Texas has not submitted a plan for that particular act as of yet. I know we still have time, but I would love for us to get that, because they talked about the funding that is being matched, federal funding that is being matched. And of course, we're really trying to put the family first and trying to make, also trying to make sure that removals are minimized and things like that, and different evidence-based options for families. And so if y'all need my help, which I doubt that I can, but I can definitely give you input, whoever's on the call, call me. I will do what I can, because free dollars, we need free dollars. Also, some of the members of the parent collaboration group statewide were asked to be a part of the Kennedy Harvard Family-Based Safety Services Project Focus Group. And we all met with an individual virtually as well. And we talked about different things of how to involve parents, how to not only how to involve parents, but how to kind of minimize some of the activity, I guess, that CPS has within the family, like not like y'all can't be involved, obviously, but like what can we do to help parents to learn and to limit the rate of recidivism? What can we do to help the parents to grow in the process and to kind of educate them and make them better, just in different areas. And finally, for me, I have been selected to be a parent fellow with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance Parent Partnership Fellowship Initiative. Just a word to all of you all, if y'all can limit the titles of these little organizations to like 3 words, it would be great. But with that initiative, it's designed to support parents who are sharing their experiences and priorities with the state leaders, legislators, and other key stakeholders. Their goal is to partner with parents from Arizona, Georgia, Washington, and of course, Texas, because that's who we are, in order to improve policies and systems that affect families in each state by developing solutions that are informed by the lived experience and strengths of parents. Actually, we have our first meeting today at noon. So I'm going to say goodbye to y'all at noon. I love you dearly, but I think this is a great opportunity to have Texas voice heard and Texas parents heard, and to get that information and that experience also, because obviously every state needs improvement in these areas. That's why we have the Texas Children's Commission at this point and other commissions. And so I am honored to be a part of that. I thank the statewide PCG as well as the Texas Children Commission, because if I were not a part of these groups and these committees, they may not even know to reach out to me. So I appreciate that, and I will represent you to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula, and congratulations on being named a fellow. That's fantastic. Not surprising. The work that you do is powerful and it inspires us. And we thank you for serving on the commission and for collaborating with us. It's a wonderful experience for us as well. As you spoke about making parents aware of their rights, I wonder if that's something the commission could help support now that we have all of the new and improved ways to use virtual technology. It would be wonderful to have the commission support to put a video together, but instead of having a lawyer, kind of outlining what the rights are, having parents, one parent talk about each specific right, of course, with guidance and help of the lawyers. And I think that would be something that our parents could use as a resource and also have some confidence in. So we stand ready to support that effort, especially with what we hope will be some funds for technology and that we're getting soon. So thanks again for that update. Anyone else have any comments for Ms. Bibbs Samuels?
Thanks, Justice Guzman. I was just going to see if perhaps the commission could send out a link for all of the regional contacts that Paula was speaking about at the first, so we would have access to know who all those people are across the state. Thanks for your work, Paula, and congratulations.
Add something. I actually had thought at the beginning of before the pandemic began, I thought it would be a great idea. You all can hear me, correct? Okay, I thought it'd be a great idea maybe to put up a video for the parents, especially at the first CPS adversary hearing or removal hearing, for them to understand the rights, what this particular case in the CPS system would involve, how it's very different from the criminal cases, how it's a collaborative kind of case, how they have certain rights and that they need to prepare themselves for the first hearing to be able to understand that the purpose of this particular court is to make sure that we can try to reunify themselves in a health and safety in a healthier manner and in a safe and stable environment. So I thought that type of video would be very helpful for these parents to watch in English and in Spanish, to watch before the adversary hearing so that they can understand instead of, because I do go and explain every time we have court, but it would sort of give them that opportunity to watch the video and to hear from parents themselves as well as other judges as to what this system involves and how these cases progress in a collaborative nature so that they sort of understand that before we go ahead and reiterate it in court, it would give it much more weight. So that was just my thought.
No, that's an excellent idea, and we will vet that and maybe recruit some of you to help make that a reality. I see a hand up, Judge Shelton.
Yeah, actually, I think Rob made a video for CASA that kind of explained the process. So I don't know if that would be appropriate, and I haven't seen it in years, but it taught me everything I know.
Great. Yeah, no, we can definitely build on that and incorporate, as I said, that parent input, because I do think when you see someone in leadership that looks like you, that builds confidence. When you see someone talking to you about a lived experience and there's someone you can relate to, that builds confidence. So we'll build on what Judge Hoffman has done and try to move forward with that. Anyone else?
It would be a sequel, technically.
I would be interested in seeing that video, Judge Hoffman. So if you can send it out, would be great. I would love to see that.
Yes.
As a relatively new judge, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Bibbs Samuels. The work that you do definitely helps us because a lot of times we don't get that parent perspective. We think that we're doing the best thing for the parent, and it just may not be the best thing because what we deem right for us may not be right for that particular parent. So it helps us to personalize each case that comes before us and see each of you as people. Each parent who comes before us as a person they're seeking restoration. And so as a judge who can hear from the parent perspective, that helps to put my thoughts into perspective when I'm making decisions, and also just allowing the parents to be heard at each hearing so that they know that they are part of the process. So again, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Judge Graves Harrington. That's an excellent observation. It's so true, so very true. All of us that have sat on a family law bench understand how important that is. And so thank you for that. Anyone else on this? Okay, so we will now hear from Dr. Gary Blau.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm glad everybody survived last week. Very challenging indeed. I will say that just in terms of an update, I'm really happy to share and announce that that the Hackett Center now has officially taken on the Trauma and Grief Center. So the Trauma and Grief Center has officially relocated to the Hackett Center for Mental Health, forming the Trauma and Grief Center at the Hackett Center. And we're really excited about this because it is a synergy of work that the Hackett Center has been doing since its inception, particularly in response to Hurricane Harvey and the aftermath. And so this is really a consistent sort of blending of activities. It also allows us to provide significant amount of resources and technical assistance around the issues related to childhood trauma and bereavement. The Trauma and Grief Center is a Category 2 component of the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, which is actually funded by my former agency, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. And does a lot of work in terms of advancing and looking at evidence-based practices in the area of trauma and bereavement in particular. One of the things that I think is really important here is that while there's a lot of issues and folks that do work on trauma-informed care and the like, there are very few that really have been focusing as much attention as our Trauma and Grief Center on the issue of childhood bereavement and developing evidence-based practices for clinical providers in the area of bereavement. And of course, you know, this past year with what is approaching 500,000 people having lost their lives to COVID, that we're seeing a real expansion in issues related to childhood bereavement. And even compared to trauma, the bereavement issues in children is actually even a better predictor, unfortunately, of negative outcomes as young people, grow and develop into adulthood. So we're really feeling the importance of focusing on childhood bereavement as part of this process, and as a result of having the Dr. Julie Kaplow coming on board, and she is really a national and an international expert in this area of trauma and bereavement in children. She's actually going to be taking over for me on the statewide collaborative for trauma-informed care. I'll maintain my work with the System Improvement Committee and, of course, in the consortium. But Dr. Kaplow is going to be involved in the Trauma-Informed Care Committee, and I think that will bring really some expertise and some ability for us to provide services and supports, particularly to clinicians through what we're doing around learning collaboratives and publishing issue briefs and the like related to this. And as part of that process, just recently, I'm happy to say that the Hackett Center now has an official webpage on the Meadows Institute website. thehackettcenter.org is now a thing. It's still evolving, and we'll be updating that. In fact, next week, we're going to be adding some resources and a page specific to the Trauma and Grief Center. So I would sort of urge folks to think of us as a resource in that area, particularly in that, issues related to trauma, et cetera, are so, wrapped up with child welfare welfare, kinds of things. So that's a significant issue. And then on a more personal level, I'm really excited and happy to share that I was appointed as an adjunct clinical professor at the Menninger Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Baylor College of Medicine, and as an adjunct assistant professor for the Lewis Fallis Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences through the McGovern Medical School at the University of Texas Health. So, which part of my goal is to bring a sort of a bridging and consensus approach to working with universities, working through our, the Hackett Center and the Trauma and Grief Center to continue to focus on the importance of best practices and evidence-based practices here in the greater Houston area, across Texas, and also across the nation. So lots of activities happening, and thank you all for my ability to participate in this.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Blau. Congratulations on the appointments at Baylor and at the University of Texas. This commission is comprised of the most impressive people in the state. And so we thank you for sharing your time with us and your expertise. The issue of childhood bereavement that you brought up is something that we could all learn a little bit more about. As you have links to papers or anything else that you're publishing, we would appreciate the opportunity to share those with our judges through the Children's Commission. So just let us know, and I think it's vital that we all delve into that topic a little more closely. So let us know if there are things that we can share with our judges. Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else before I move on from Dr. Blau? Okay, Judge Susan Brown.
Good morning, everyone. I have just a short report. What I will say is I know that all the judges who are handling these cases are working really hard. The few dockets that I've handled on Zoom, a lot more participation of parents and kids. But as we all know, just even from this morning, Zoom takes a little bit longer than just calling somebody up to the bench and visiting with them or starting a hearing. So I really have to commend all the judges. I know the judges in my region are working really, really hard. My associate judges are starting really to look at some of the cases where kids have been in care for a long time and try to really focus on some of the cases to try to close those with some sort of permanent situation, whether it be adoption or really looking to more permanency. And that's been something they've started, but it's been a start and stop because of the pandemic. So I think everybody is ready to get back to actually being able to sit down at a table with everybody involved and face-to-face work through things. We are starting another PAL docket in Harris County. Judge Griffith, as opposed to Judge Griffith, is working on that and should have that up and running fairly quickly. So, it's just really a difficult time with the pandemic, as everyone knows. But I think that we're seeing a lot of people moving forward, really working toward closing cases in the correct manner, efficiently, but also looking at not wanting parents or kids back into the system to make sure that good decisions are being made. And really being helpful to the parents. The Families First Act is going to make a huge difference, I think, in really helping the parents before they get too involved into the system. And I know that the judges are working hard on that. So that's just a very quick report about what's going on in our region.
Thank you, Judge Brown. We appreciate your leadership in your region and your availability always to, as a presiding judge, to be available to any of us. I think that Judge Brown brings up a good point, and that's, we've experienced a lot of trauma and challenge from the pandemic, but it's also provided an opportunity to really engage emerging technologies and to build on technologies to continue this work. There are a lot of people who don't have a car and can't travel to the courtroom or can't travel to visit with the doctors or the providers. And so we look forward to working with all our administrative judges and presiding judges on continuing to use this technology strategically. But we also welcome the opportunity. I miss people. I don't know about you all, but I like people and I miss people. So I'm also looking forward to getting back together in person. And with that said, now we'll hear from our new Chief Judge, Judge Darlene Byrne. How honored we are that you continue with us, Judge Byrne. And I don't think we've met since you've been sworn in. So congratulations on your Chief Judge position, and thank you for continuing with us. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all for continuing to put up with me and allow me to be a part. This is so refreshing to be with you all and to talk about an area that impacts so many of our children and families that is really a passion of mine. So thank you, Justice Guzman, for still allowing me to be here. And Judge Rucker, thank you, just thank you for so many things and for your grace and leadership. You just are an amazing man, and I am honored to know you. So thank you. So I've got a few things that I'll update you on. Hopefully I'll do this fast. I know Justice Guzman wanted us to do 5 minutes or less, but what's so exciting is there's so many great things going on all over our great state, but there are great things going on nationally too. So I'll bring a few of those things to light. As many of you may know, I'm the co-chair of the Judicial Leadership Council for National CASA. That's a group of judges all across the nation, about 15 at max. I co-chair that with Judge Ernestine Gray from Louisiana. And right now, and thank you, Jamie, so much, they are recruiting new judicial leaders to be members. And I have co-chaired this organization since its beginning. We're ready to pass the torch. So they're also looking for new co-chairs. I'll be on the council, but they are looking for new co-chairs, and that decision will be made in probably April. So please, if you're interested, the Children's Commission sent out a link about it, and please send in your application. Would love to see a bunch of Texans being considered for this. I think we've got like 5 or 6 positions available. Also great leaders across the country that you get to visit with and learn from. Also, I've had the honor and privilege of being tapped as the judicial advisor for our Travis County CASA program. I'll be willing to do that as long as I continue to self-recuse myself from Travis County CPS cases, because I presided over those for so long. But once those are back, I'll cede that new position that they've developed, a judicial advisor for CASA of Travis County, to another judge. But I'm looking forward to that opportunity. I also bemoan through Snowmageddon that we were not able to do our Judicial Trauma Institute last week. Jocelyn and Jamie and so many were working so hard to put that on, but it was just not the right time for the Judicial Trauma Institute. But as the whippersnapper staff that we have, we already have new dates for the JTI, and I hope you'll all be a part of it. It's April 22nd and 23rd. So please put that on your calendar. Again, we're going to get there. And I think it's just befitting that a trauma institute has now been kicked down the pipe, not once, not twice, but the 3rd time. We're going to make this thing happen. We are standing strong. And even though it's traumatic that it got kicked down again, we're going to pull this off. And so thanks to our team for doing that. Also, as many of you know, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges has their Juvenile Justice Conference, March 21 through March 24. I selfishly would love for you to be there. I am going to speak on Wednesday morning of the conference on passing the gavel with confidence, succession planning from the start. But there are going to be just amazing speakers. I think there's an early bird fee that's a reduced fee. Jamie also, thanks to the commission, put that out there. So please, please, please join us. It was going to be in Dallas in person. However, there's a pandemic. So we're going to be virtual. Fifth thing, we're also seeking speakers for with NCJ, FCJ, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, are looking for speakers for plenaries for our annual conference, which will be in July. So if you know someone, please email me. If you want to be the one that speaks, please let me know, and we'll get that in front of the curriculum committee for NCJ, FCJ. That's a July conference, and looking for plenary speakers there. There's also a new committee with the National Council that's an appellate justice committee. Go figure. I am a member of that appellate justice committee, and we are looking to ensure that we meet the needs of appellate justices that oversee child welfare and juvenile justice cases across the nation. And so if you know appellate justices or their staff attorneys that are interested in membership of the National Council, we are looking to weave in an appellate track for our national conference speaking series, because that also delays permanency, as you all know, if a child's life languishes at the appellate court. So we are starting that and would love to work on building that base for the National Council. Two other items, and then I'll cede the floor. We're also with Futures Without Violence, as well as the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. You will be seeing soon a conference dealing with the issue of sexual harassment in our courts across the nation. This is called #WeToo, and we have been working almost a year now to build that curriculum. As you might imagine, it's difficult. If, for example, in a courthouse, a law enforcement officer, that's your sheriff's department or the like, observes maybe one of our parents being harassed inappropriately by a lawyer in your courthouse, you know, who's the boss? Who makes those reports? How do we ensure that people, as they're accessing our courts, including our children and families, are safe and free from sex harassment and discrimination? And how can you build that systemically for a complex system like a court system? And finally, I just, so many people have been traumatized by Snowmageddon, by the pandemic, but our courthouses across the state have also been damaged during this time. And I know many of you are struggling with flooded courtrooms, with ceilings that have fallen here in Travis County. 3 floors, including our child welfare courts, have been incredibly damaged. Ceiling tiles with asbestos all over courtrooms, burned down courthouse during this time frame, I think in Judge Hoffman's area. And so I know we've got a lot of lifting to do to make our houses of justice a place of dignity, a place of safety, and a place of healing. So my heart goes out to those of us in the judiciary and court families all across the state related to what we're trying to do to clean up and get back to work. So I cede my floor to you, Justice Guzman. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge Byrne, as always, for the amazing work that you do and your selfless dedication. We just appreciate you continuing to work with us. If does anyone have any questions or comments for Judge Byrne? Okay, we're next going to hear from Judge Countess, and I'm going to cede the floor over to Judge McCraw, just in case my computer, it says plug in your computer, and I did, but it's not accepting the charge. And so before I go off the air completely, I'm going to try to locate another cord. But so we will hear from Judge Countess, and it may take me a couple of minutes. And so Judge McCraw, you're in charge while I resolve this technology issue. It's never happened before, so I'm not sure, but I'll fix it as quickly as I can. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Guzman. Hi, everybody. I don't have an update. I do have more, I guess, of a statement, which I'll keep very brief. And that is that I am very hopeful that our trial court judges, especially our family court judges in Harris County, will get access to the vaccine. I'm looking forward to that time. It seems like, at least around where I am, we have sort of a Hunger Games approach. Maybe that's the way it is where y'all are. I don't know. I'm aware of areas in Texas where certain judges who are considered, I think, frontline workers in many ways, particularly juvenile courts and family courts, were maybe prioritized, or there was a way that they were able to access the vaccine. That hasn't happened in our area. But if any of you have any sort of advice or found a way to make that happen, obviously, you know, that within the rules, I don't actually know how that all would work. But anyway, feel free to email me. That's basically it. That's just something that's been on my mind, and especially given the importance of the work they do. And yes, the fact that we can do all this via Zoom, I know has had some really good results in the family courts, but I can't imagine that it's super easy for any of you to be doing that work from your dining room table, and that getting back in your courtroom and with your staff, or you know, around your stuff, is going to do nothing but improve outcomes for families. So anyway, if anybody has any input, and if I'm out of line for that statement, I don't apologize, but I would take, you know, a hand slap if that's what happens. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Justice Countess. Chief Justice Byrne, did you have a comment or a question?
I would let you know, in our jurisdiction, the judges were able to be prioritized, and it was a effort by our local mayor visiting with our chief medical officer in charge of the virus vaccine dissemination, recognizing that if government goes down, frontline does go down. And so that is how the judiciary and even our staff got prioritized here in Austin.
That's helpful information. Good to know. Did anyone else have any comments or questions? Sorry, Mr. Slayton.
I just wanted to give everybody an update on that. I was going to give it later, but I'll just mention it since it's come up here. So the you know, as you know, each state is given the authority to decide who gets to go when on the vaccines. We've been, from our perspective at the state level, been communicating regularly with I'm going to make sure I get the name right here, the expert vaccine allocation panel, which is who's making those decisions in Texas. And as you know, 1A were hospital workers and those type of folks, residents of nursing home facilities. 1B are people over 65 and who have, you know, increased medical conditions that put them at higher risk. And so, you know, obviously any judge or court staff who meet those criteria should go, if they are interested, to go and get the vaccine. We believe that, and we've been told that when the state decides to move to 1C, which I'm hoping will be soon, relatively soon, that will be where essential workers come in. So Chief Justice Byrne just mentioned essential workers. That's technically in 1C, and that's what the CDC has recommended and what the state appears to be going to recommend, and that the judiciary and those who support the judiciary, including attorneys, are listed as essential workers in the Department of Homeland Security's critical infrastructure workers listing. So we expect that judges and staff and attorneys who practice in courts will be in 1C when that happens. We've in our conversations with DSHS, obviously cities and counties may do things differently, but from a statewide perspective, we believe that it will be 1C where the judiciary becomes eligible to get that as an essential worker.
Great. Thank you very much for the update. I'm sure that was helpful to everyone. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
I have a question for David. What was the name of that council?
It's the Expert Vaccination Allocation Panel, EVAP. So if you just go to DSHS, they're the group that it's medical folks, legislators, other types of folks who basically provide expert guidance to the commissioner of the Department of State Health Services to determine who's next in the group. And if I can, we'll make sure that you all have access to a link to that information after the fact.
This is Stephanie Click, and I actually serve on EVAP. And right now, we are very hopeful that another vaccine is going to be approved within a number of days. We were trying to prioritize folks that have comorbidities and have the highest risk of a bad outcome or death from COVID-19. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that want vaccine, but there's not enough doses. And we're hopeful that with another vaccine approved, that we will have more doses and can move along and get more people vaccinated very soon.
I've returned on my iPad. Good thing that David Slayton with the Office of Court Administration is on the call because he can help me get a new cord for my laptop. Thank you, Representative Click, for your comments on the vaccine and for being here. And it looks like we need to go back to Judge Coley.
We would have been fine without doing that, but since we have just a couple of quick announcements locally, we in regard to our human trafficking work, we had our local Heart of Texas Human Trafficking Roundtable in January, had great attendance. We've continued, I think, to do a really effective job of networking and communicating, even though everything's been virtual in terms of our meetings since last year, and had great turnout again in our virtual meeting in January. They were able to host a Not My City outreach also in January, and they did that work trying to get the word out in the local communities. There was a CPS emergency shelter episode on through Fixer Upper in Magnolia and the Chip and Joanne. They did some work and did some renovations and remodeling on a local shelter in McLennan County. If you are interested in checking that out, it was a pretty neat episode. It was on their channel. I think there was a tweet they sent out about it. But they, through Unbound locally, they renovated that and did some great work for the kids that get placed there. And so that was exciting to see because, as we know, those shelters aren't always like the one that you'll see at the end of the episode. So it was great work, and thankfully they assisted with that. And so I want to make sure they get credit for that. That was great. In terms of dual status work, I think Jamie will probably give you the update on our last meeting that we had in December, but we had our last meeting for the task force at the end of 2020. And I want to let you know that Judge Lisa Jarrett and I will be doing a presentation at the Juvenile Justice Conference also through NCJ FCJ next month on a holistic approach to serving dual status youth. And so we look forward to making that presentation next month. Just in terms of, I mean, I could talk about a few other things we've done, but I'd be remiss. I just feel like sometimes it's good to talk about things we're struggling with. Also, locally, one of the things that we still struggle with is trying to find placement for those dual status kids that either haven't completely crept into the CPS system or that are deeply entrenched in both systems, but need some different placement that really the juvenile justice system isn't equipped to provide because of the mental health needs or other needs in the home. And so I just tell you that we're still struggling with that, trying to get CPS involved really early in a different way as opposed to after removal, or try to get kids placed in a way because of the issues at home. It's just not going to be a good placement for the child to stay there, but really they're not great placement options outside of that we can find. So we're struggling with that, and hopefully in the next several months we can all have better success with that around the state. But that's something we're working on, and hopefully we can find a way to address those needs better for those kids in our community and probably others also. So that will conclude my report. Thank you, Justice Guzman.
Thank you, Judge. Thanks so much for all that you do, and we appreciate you being so faithful in your service to the state and to the commission. And so we also have the Associate Commissioner for DFPS, Deneen Dryden, but I think that we will get your update later in the meeting, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Perfect, thank you. And I will hear from our newest commissioner, effective Tuesday, Judge Boyd Ferguson.
Thank you, Justice Guzman. The virtual bench book work group, that may be something that's new to some of you. This springs from the brainchild of Justice Guzman, and it is a hard charging work group. She has given us an aggressive deadline, and we are determined to meet it. So just to bring you up to speed, what we've done is we've assembled a team of 7 or 8 just absolute child welfare rock stars from across the state, covering all portions of the state. These are all judges and associate judges. And then we have combined their wisdom and leadership with all sides of the process. So we have a CASA, we have a CPS prosecutor, we have an attorney ad litem in every single subcommittee. And our goal is not just to create the virtual bench book, something that teaches every judge how to do these hearings virtually, but we also want to improve upon the standard practices and guide courts towards best practices. And the way to do that from our perspective was to have all perspectives involved in every committee. Every one of us thinks we do something well and some other things not so well, but there's always someone who does it better. And by bringing in a group this size with this many people, we are seeing that we are simply raising the sea level for everyone in every way. So I want to encourage all of you, please, if there's something that you do virtually that you really think is a good way to do it, or if you have any questions, please reach out to us, Judge Crump, myself, any one of the committee chairs, and give us your wisdom as well. Let us incorporate your best practices as well. We plan to have the book hopefully ready to go early to midsummer. So there's not a lot of time for you to dilly-dally. If you've got an idea and you want to contribute, reach out now and let us incorporate it as soon as possible. You know, some of the judges involved, Aurora Martinez-Jones, David Canales, Judge Hoffman, Judge Crump, these are Judge Villalon. These are some great hardworking people, and I know they're advancing quickly. So don't be shy. We need your wisdom, and that is everyone from judges to everyone in this room from all perspectives. There is also, of course, the remote proceedings task force, which is separate and apart from the commission, but there are 3 committees in that group that have direct involvement with what you do. Judge Emily Miskell is in charge of the subcommittee for family law, and trying to get all of family law hearings virtual in the future after the pandemic and the disaster are over, hopefully soon. Judge Hoffman is in charge of child welfare and juvenile matters. I'm in charge of the subcommittee for just getting into the courtroom so that you can have hearings. And so if you have any ideas on those topics, please reach out to us. We already have a draft of proposed legislation to change every code in Texas. And we're tearing that apart and giving our input, and we could use your input as well. So that's my report. Thank you again, Justice Guzman, for inviting me. I cede my time.
Thank you, Judge Ferguson. And again, thanks for taking that important work on. Anyone have any comments for Judge Ferguson? All right, then we will now hear from Ann Helgenstein.
Thank you, Justice. And I appreciate the great information that's being shared today. Just a couple of updates from Casey Family Programs. We have a couple of new initiatives going on that we're working on in partnership with the Harvard Government Performance Lab. Casey has funded 2 Harvard fellows to be on the ground, boots on the ground here in Texas. The 2 projects that we're working on, and we're getting now very close to finalizing the design work and getting to actual pilot sites and testing. One is about families who are receiving services from family-based safety services. We really want to, we're working with the department, with Deneen Dryden and her team, to really look about how we can better target those services specifically to what that family may need. Also, how to make those services more accessible and to use our contracts in terms of providing those services in a more accessible way for families. Like the court system, we have certainly seen some great value in virtual services. Sometimes that can work well, sometimes no, we still need to be doing face-to-face. The other project is really to look at, through the Prevention and Early Intervention program, what was happening to families a couple of years out from their coming to the attention of Child Protective and eventually receiving FBSS services, in-home services. We want to know what was happening in their lives so that before that would happen, our prevention and early intervention programs could be made available to keep that family from coming to the attention of CPS. So these are 2 projects that we're really excited about, and I think can really help us look at what families need and keep families from having their children removed and children going through the trauma. We're also working on our diversity and equity and inclusion project. We've launched a new program, a new initiative within DFPS's PEI program, Prevention and Early Intervention program, and also to build a strong system that would give us parent and youth voice in what is happening in communities and what services would best be served. So we're very excited with the work that we're doing and our partnership with the commission and also with the agency, with providers and many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Casey is a long time partner of the commission and Judge. And I'm sorry. Thank you so much. And I was going to say, we've worked with you before and have thoroughly enjoyed working with you and your contributions. And we're super excited to once again have the opportunity to work with you and to continue to collaborate with Casey. Does anyone have any comments? All right, then we are. Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Oh, just a thank you.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I lost my visual of everyone on the call, and so bear with me. But thank you so much. And we will now hear from Judge Hufstedler, one of our wonderful, wonderful judges in Brazoria County.
Thank you, Justice Guzman. I am looking at this screen and I'm trying to figure out how, as Ann used the phrase that I was fixing to use, how do we put this as a boots on the ground type of program for these folks that are involved, the parents and the kids? So my thought is this: there are a lot of highly intelligent folks on this Zoom, but how can we get that information to these parents And how can we get that information to the children that are involved? The only way that we can get that to them is to educate. So my focus has been to try to get information, as much information as we can, to these attorneys that are involved in these cases so that they can then share that information with their clients. I love the work that Paula has been doing, and she and I, last time we actually met in person, which was a long time ago, we're talking about the mentoring program. And I mean, if you've ever been involved in group therapy, you've ever had someone that went to group therapy, they didn't go willingly. They went kicking and screaming. I'm not going to sit down in front of a whole bunch of people and talk about my problems. But when you talk to those folks who have been to group therapy after the fact, it's one of the most enjoyable parts of their therapy. And I think Dr. Blah would probably second that because what they find out when they're there is a couple of things. One, they're not alone. Two, this is not the only time in the world that this issue has come up. And three, that people have been through this before. And as Paula has so eloquently taken on this charge, help people to get through it because you've been through it. And, you know, and that's one of the things that I see that's missing with a lot of the folks that come through our courts, specifically in Brazoria County, because these folks come in here and they think they're alone, and they think that the world is out to get them, and they think that CPS is this big governmental agency that's coming to take their kids, and they're not going to be able to get them back, and they can't fight the system. So I say all that to say this: my boots on the ground for Brazoria County is education, and one of the things that in the last Zoom that I was involved in, we were talking about putting together the toolkit, and the family bar in the state of Texas, the family law section does such a wonderful job of the family toolkit. I keep the family toolkit here on the bench with me all the time, and attorneys come in and I see them pull it out. I know we're fixing to have a good hearing because they use it. And that toolkit that we're working on is something that I think a lot of attorneys really need because it gives it to them, the information that they need, so that they have it readily available. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I got all these books sitting up here on the bench, but I don't have them memorized. Some people have a wonderful photographic memory and they have all that stuff memorized, but it's my 35 years of experience being in this wonderful profession that I've learned all that, not because I've memorized all of it. So I think that toolkit is one of those things that's an awesome thing that we can put in the hands of these attorneys. Years ago, when I was practicing up in Dallas, and a lot of judges probably on this screen, and a lot of attorneys know about these things, but there used to be a federal judge in Dallas County that had brown bag lunches. And those brown bag lunches were, you bring your own lunch, you sit down, and the judge in that federal court would sit down from 12 to 1, and he or she would tell you how to practice in their court. So we have had an educational system here in Brazoria County. We used to do a continuing education for our CPS workers. And when I found out that we weren't doing it anymore, I decided that maybe we need to change that. Instead of having a full day program, that we need to have that brown bag. So what we're working on, Judge Bradshaw is my associate judge, what we're going to be working on is putting together a brown bag program for CPS workers, another brown bag for our attorneys, and then another brown bag where we bring everybody together. Because as I have seen sitting on the bench, there's a difference between the focus that folks have. There's a policies and procedures manual, the multiple volumes that CPS puts together for the folks that are working with CPS. And there's a difference between the policies and procedures manual than there is from the family code. So what I want to do is I want to educate the caseworkers. Here's what you need to look for when you're going out there. Under 262 of the family code, the legislature intended you to do certain things. I know you have a policies and procedures manual. I know that manual says something about having a gate, a locked gate around a pool, but you know what? The family code doesn't. The family code talks about what's something that could endanger a child, but we don't go into the details of whether that pool should have a locked gate around it or not. So I know that we've dealt with that here in Brazoria County. They didn't approve a family because they didn't have a fence around their pool. But in all other respects, that was a wonderful family. So what I want to do is to put that education, the boots on the ground, to these attorneys and to the workers, and then collaboratively to bring them all together and say, look, guys, you're not on different sides. We're all looking, as the family code provides, to bring these children back to the parents. And how can we do that? So, you know, I listened to the trauma informed training, and I listened to all the organizations and things that are out there, and those are awesome. But as a judge, I need to know how I can get some of these people involved in that. The best way that I know how is get it with the attorneys and the caseworkers, and then those two groups can put that information in front of the parties so that we can get them informed. And as the family code and the legislature indicated, reunification should be our goal in every case. So, you know, how do we do that? And that's in the way of education. Zoom is awesome. From a judge's standpoint, I don't think we should ever get rid of Zoom. It has enabled me to have hearings that I could not otherwise have. We're having, in the middle of this pandemic, this meeting today because of Zoom. There's any number of different mediums that are out there where we can use them, WebEx and Livestream and all of those, whichever one we choose. People have access to that. Zoom's a free app, and I've had folks come in here as pro ses, and Judge Brown, I'm not telling on myself. So I've had them come to the courtroom and I say, look, we can't have live hearings. So what I need you to do is download that Zoom app and then go get in your car or find a coffee shop someplace and we can have your hearing, but we can't have the live hearings. So how do we put that into place with CPS? CPS has the ability through getting these parents on Zoom to now have some of these therapy sessions. I mean, telemedicine, if you've had a visit with your doctor, that's the exact same thing. So now we have parents, every one of these people that come in here has a smartphone. If they're on all kinds of governmental assistance, they got a smartphone. So get them signed up on Zoom and they can have the meetings with the folks and do the services that we're ordering them to be a part of. And so I think Zoom is awesome and should be something that is here to stay. Just a little side note, I had an attorney that was in Brazil appear the other day. Seamless. It was awesome. He was on Zoom and we had a hearing and he was all the way down in Brazil. So I think Zoom is something that the parents that we have, they can take part in a lot of these services by Zoom and not miss out. They don't have to miss work. We can schedule them during the noon hour. We can schedule them at a break or something like that. And if we're ordering them to take care of these kids by way of having a safe and stable home, if we're ordering them to get employment, if we're ordering them to all of these services, Zoom is one of those avenues by which we can get a lot of that stuff taken care of, and they can complete these services. And then last, Chief Justice Byrne said something about the sexual harassment. We actually dealt with that here in Brazoria County with an attorney, and he was charged with harassing his client and actually convicted and is now on probation. How he still has his law license, I do not know, but he does, but he's no longer on our list. It's something that's out there, and it's something that is something we need to be aware of in talking to attorneys and talking to CPS, if some of these folks report it, let somebody know in HR, let the judge know, so that we can take care of that. In Brazoria County, we had that situation come up, and we took care of it, reported it to the district attorney's office, and that person is no longer involved in CPS at all. Last, I do want to echo what everyone has said with regard to Judge Rucker. It's been my honor and my pleasure to have known him for all of these years, not just with the commission, but through family law and attending the family law, advanced family law conferences all these years. He's been a vital part of family law for as long as I've been in this business. And I want to thank you for all the work that you have done for the state of Texas. Thank you, Justice Guzman, for the time.
Thank you, Judge. And it's good to hear that the virtual technology, Zoom or WebEx or any of the other platforms that are being used, that you find them useful and that you want them to continue. I do think they're a game changer in the child welfare arena. Your perspectives on getting the community involved are spot on. Less government, more community. Thank you for working towards that goal. And it occurs to me that perhaps as we think about projects that we want to undertake as a commission, that maybe putting together a series of videos that could be used in these cases, parents' rights, and what the process looks like, but have it all in one place and have a team of experts coordinate that. So I think it'll help the judges and the attorneys and the parents. So that's something we'll think about as a commission. But thank you, Judge, for those perspectives. And we're going to hear from Representative Click next. And then we're going to take a short break and commissioner updates to hear from our special guest. So Representative Click, thanks so much for being with us and for your leadership, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, as everybody knows, the legislature is in session now. You will begin seeing committee hearings next week. Usually first committee hearings are organizational in nature. Bills are being referred to committee now. A whole bunch of them have been referred the last few days. A couple of things that I am working on this session that may be of interest to commission members. I'm going to continue to work on normalcy issues. I have a bill dealing with that. I also have a bill that is reforming some of the child abuse registry. And, what I've learned is that folks that are in that registry, they're not ranked by the level of severity of harm that may have occurred. Some other states have had some litigation regarding that. So we are working on some reforms to that. The other thing I'm working on is, we celebrate adoptions, during our National Adoption Day. A lot of these families have worked really hard and to be reunified. And I think that we also need to celebrate reunification of families. And make that a special day for those families as well. So those are the things that I'm working on personally, bills that I've filed.
Thank you very much, Representative Click. And I think that's an excellent idea, celebrating reunification in a way by honoring the family's efforts and the support system efforts and the judges who take the time to ask the right questions and issue orders that lead to reunification. So let us know how we can support that, your vision in that respect. And also thank you for being here. We know how busy you are. I saw somewhere on social media that some of the legislators were there until after midnight last night, working on issues that are vital and critical to our state's infrastructure. So we thank you for taking time today to be with us and for sharing your perspective. Anyone else have a comment or a question for Representative Click?
I I do have a comment. I just want to say that I think it's a superb idea to definitely celebrate reunification. One of the ways that we can celebrate reunification is to prevent recidivism. So have a support system. I know one thing, my husband is a child advocate, and in one of his cases, at the end of the case, the mom was like, well, what do I do now? So I think, having that support system to, we've reunified this family, they've gone through the process, we feel that the home is safe and the children can go home. But what next? How do we make sure that they don't return? So Representative Click, thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront, because reunification does need to be celebrated, but we also need to continue to support the family to ensure that they don't return to the system.
Thank you. Excellent observation. Thank you. All right. As I said, we're going to take a break and commissioner updates. And by the way, they have been fantastic and the conversation has been wonderful and edifying. So thank you, everyone. But we're joined today by Ms. Jen Sines. She's a single foster and adoptive mom. Jen has experienced firsthand the need to empower parents with trauma-informed care training so that they can provide emotional and behavioral healing to children. In April of 2020, she welcomed her 2 adopted daughters, Zoe and Karma, from foster care into her home, and immediately she saw the significant transformation and the healing of her girls when she began to implement trauma-informed care. I celebrated the adoption with many in our community with Jen, and I thought it would be just really powerful for her to share her experiences with us. We celebrate the adoption, but we're here to learn, and we're here to understand what we can do better. So thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Justice Guzman. I'm very, very happy to be here, to see all of you here. And I'm thanking you for the invitation, to speak at this such an important commission, the Children's Commission, to just speak a little bit about my adoption experience and let you know also that good things are happening in the system. And there are some great outcomes, despite the fact that we normally hear a lot of bad things, in the press or the media, but there are some great things happening, and the great things that you are doing here in this commission. I had the pleasure of meeting Justice Guzman a few years ago when I worked in the Senate. I was the general counsel to Senator Chuy Hinojosa, and I got to focus a lot on healthcare and had a lot of experience with foster care policy reform and also crafting the budget to best help our CPS caseworkers and how we best utilize those state funds. So about 2.5 years ago, when I decided, I've never been married, I want more than anything to be a mother, it felt just like a natural fit to go through the state and to go through our CPS system and the foster care system. I was looking to adopt actually just one little girl, but it turned into 2 little girls who are sisters, and it's been the most beautiful experience that I could have ever imagined. Legally, they were adopted just about 3 months ago. And as Justice Guzman mentioned, Karma, she's the little one, she's 8. She just turned 8 about 2 weeks ago. And Zoe is the older one, and she is 10, and they are sisters, and they were in the system for about 4 years. So quite a while. They've shifted around from foster care families and emergency shelters, and now they're home. Now they have a forever home with me, and they are the sweetest, kindest little girls, and they're so full of love, And I don't think you would think that after all they've been through, abuse and neglect, they shouldn't be hardened or just, hate the world in a way. And yet they're so full of love. And so I couldn't be happier to have been blessed with them. And they've been living with me almost about a year now. And it's been just magical, despite even the COVID situation. It's been a magical time for us. And I'll start back at the beginning just to give you some background and perspective. When I started about 2.5 years ago, the certification process, I went through the states, through CPS, did not use an agency. And my caseworker was incredible. She was amazing. And the other caseworkers I met along the way were also incredible. They go above and beyond to do everything they need to do and what they don't even need to do. I realized too that actually going through it firsthand was completely different from what I think policymakers think it is. It was hard and it was a lot. It's a lot of personal recommendations and home inspections and health inspections and CPR training and home studies and parenting training classes. But I mean, it's definitely worth it, but it's a lot. There's a lot of strengths in that training. I will say that one of the things I've learned that I think could also be helpful, and I've become passionate about a lot of these issues, is there is some room for growth. And I think one of the places would be in the parenting training classes that I went through CPS. They were great at explaining, these children in foster care, they're going to come to you and they have a lot of trauma. They have a lot of issues. There's a lot of explanations how this happened and how that hurt them mentally and physically. But there wasn't really much on what do we do with that? What tools can we actually use? I mean, I didn't really feel that I knew what could I do. I feel I had a very great understanding of they're going to be traumatized, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. But again, a child didn't come into my home, so I kind of wasn't too worried yet. But my caseworker, again, I'm going to say, was amazing with that. And so after about 8 months, I was certified. It took me about 8 months, and after that, I could spend my time. I spent a lot of Saturdays going to adoption match picnics, which I didn't even know existed before this, and it was very eye-opening. It was also very emotionally draining and overwhelming. There were so many children at these events that needed homes, that needed love, and that needed a place to live. And there were, probably 50, 60 kids at each of these events. And there was maybe 2, 3, or 4 couples that were looking as prospective parents. So the need is huge. And so it was very eye-opening to see. It was also heartbreaking, but as I went along, I ended up meeting Zoe and Karma at one of these events, and I can't even tell you how that feels to just click with the child. I mean, it's very intangible. There's nothing said on how, that was another strange process, question in my head, how do you choose your child? How do you choose which one of these children in need, do you take home? And it's kind of naturally happens. And I met them, and it was incredible. We went on a couple of other play dates after that. And so I knew in my heart, and they just had this sparkle in their eyes. That was it. We were matched. We were going to be, this was meant to be. And what happened was, this was March of last year. And so the COVID lockdown happened. So immediately cut off everything with CPS, visitations, everything was just, nobody knew what was happening. So it stopped. The plus side of that was that schools ended up being canceled and for the rest of the year. So the girls were able to move in with me earlier because they were not living in the same city as me. They were about an hour and a half away. So they moved in with me in April, which was a little bit early, which was a true blessing. And we spent every living moment together because we couldn't go anywhere. We were home. So it was a true bonding experience of just, this is it. We're doing this full court press here. Like, it's just all or nothing. So they showed up on my doorstep with, with this one little pink suitcase, and I have the picture framed, and that's all they owned. That's all they had. So we started from scratch of getting them clothes, getting them shoes, getting them some toys, everything they needed. But most importantly, they needed is a home and a bed and love and food. That was a huge part of it. They wanted to just eat all the time because they clearly had never had that experience to be able to eat what they wanted when they wanted. I mean, that really struck me. That was a big piece that struck me. And going back to the training piece, I thought, okay, great. And now I have to I'm a mom. I'm going to be a mom, and I have children, and I'm not quite sure what to do. Because there were, I could tell they had some trauma. They were scared. Are we really going to be here? You say this is our forever home, but are you really going to be here? There was a lot of thought that they thought if they did even the slightest thing bad or wrong, that I was just going to throw them out, that I didn't want them, because they knew about the 6 months. They knew that they had to live with me for 6 months before I could legally adopt them. So they were set on 6 months, 6 months. We can do it. We can make it. Even though I told them, you know, you're going to live here forever. You are my children. This isn't a trial period. You're mine. But that being said, I luckily got connected through a friend to a Facebook group that was really focused on connected parenting, that really pushed TBRI. And all of a sudden I learned about Dr. Karen Purvis and these books, and it was just a game changer. I read 2 of her books immediately. My parents read their books. I mean, it was the perfect timing. I couldn't have asked for a better time. And I can't tell you the emotional healing, the behavioral transformation that I just saw like that fast. Like it was like a light bulb in my head of why didn't anybody tell me this before? How come nobody told me this? Like, you know, that's something I felt that should have been taught. And so I do stress that should be part of certification classes or parenting classes somewhere, because it works. It so works. And they've changed incredibly. I mean, physically, mentally, emotionally, they've changed. They've gained so much weight. They've grown taller. You know, you can see, you know, the stress just leave their body, especially Zoe. Zoe is the older one. And I know that she's always been responsible for her little sister to keep her safe. And when bad things happened to her little sister, she felt it was her fault. She needed to protect her. And it was quite 2 to 3 months maybe where the circles under her eyes went away and she finally started sleeping where she knew she was safe. And it was my job to take care of her and my job to take care of her little sister. And it was her job to be a kid. I just wanted her to be a kid, you know? And so it was beautiful to watch. And specifically with Karma, she was little. She came to me with probably on 4 or 5 medications, taking them 3 or 4 times a day. She had been diagnosed with ADHD, ODD, severe anxiety, all of these things. And I didn't like her on a lot of all these medications because a lot of them are hardcore adult medications, but she was irritable a lot, pouty a lot. She was, you know, the perfect little girl to use TBRI on. And I could see it working as it went. You know, she would scream and shout, and then I would utilize the tools I used, and you know how we use the right words and how we say the right things, and we understand that the trauma isn't their fault, and we connect more, they trust more, and they love more, and it just slowly kind of they change. And I will tell you right now, they still haven't lived with me a year, and she's off all of those medications except one, and she takes it once a day. And I'm so proud of her, and she loves it because she used to think that she was on it because she was bad, which is not the case at all. And so she's so happy, and they're flourishing so much. They're getting all A's now. They can read now. I mean, they were never sent to school before they were put into foster care, and they repeated a couple of grades. And now they're in their school, and they're going, and they're in person gratefully, and they love it. They love going to school. They're so happy. And I can't tell you how happy we've been. And about 3 months ago, we had the opportunity to go into the courtroom and legally adopt them. And my previous boss, Senator Hinojosa, was our adoption attorney. So he got to be with us, which was a very special moment for us. And it was in person, just us, but it was available on Zoom. So I think someone was mentioning how has Zoom helped. I mean, sometimes you get zoomed out or tired of calls, but because of that, we had the adoption on Zoom, which allowed our family across the country and friends to be able to log on. And so many people were watching. And I'll tell you, both of their classrooms, Zoe and Karma, their teachers logged on for their classmates, and they all were watching, and they could see their little classmates, and they were just jumping for joy that they were watching, and everyone was seeing them being adopted. And I mean, I was asked a couple questions by the judge that I didn't expect, and so I started crying, and then everyone on Zoom started crying. It was emotional, but it was a wonderful avenue to be able to use Zoom for that purpose. And I mean, that was wonderful. And so I think that they're with me now forever, and we're learning, and there's challenging days, but I keep using TBRI. I keep talking to so many others. I think one of the most important things we can do that I've been able to do, I mean, through my friendships and through my colleagues at the Capitol, through, you know, legislators, lobbyists, staffers, agencies, the community, friends, so many more people have become aware of the need for homes for children in the foster care system, of the challenges that the foster care system has. And I've been able to talk about some of the changes that are needed and to talk about what you can do. I can't tell you how many people have called me in the past year, friends, friends of friends, friends of friends and friends who have said, do you mind talking about your experience? Like how is it? We were thinking of adopting, but no one really knows, because when I started, I even worked for the state for years, and I worked with the CPS system in the policy arena, and I didn't know the first thing about it and how exactly it works. So many people think, they've told me, oh, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to adopt. Oh, it's going to take years and years to, all of these are not true. And it's been so joyful for me to actually share with them what's true, what's not true, how the process is, how many children are actually in need. I think most people think of adoptions, they think of private adoptions and a little baby, but there's so many other ways to become a parent and to help and to have, a child. And, I think it's been most wonderful for me to be able to increase the awareness of that. And I've been fortunate to have just two beautiful, happy little girls. And it's just been a wonderful experience that I hope this has excited you all and make you know that what you're doing is so important and so well worth it. And every little change we make and every little thing we do, even to one child, means the world of a difference.
Gosh, Jen, thank you for, let's give her a round of applause so I cannot cry because we're crying of joy, tears of joy.
I've cried so much this year. I can show you a picture. I have a picture if you want to see them. Let me show you.
Oh, yes.
There we go.
Oh, they're beautiful, 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 beautiful little girls.
That was on
Just
their
beautiful.
adoption day. We have it framed. They love that picture.
But we thank you for sharing your heartwarming and uplifting experience, your story of love, your story of family, of courage, and there's so much that we can learn from you and the TBRI and how that changed all of us that have worked on trauma-informed care and just seeing how it works to be a catalyst for the change that's going to help support a new family, a family like yours, or that's going to strengthen children that have been through so much and parents as well. So thank you for sharing that. Zoom, it's good to hear that Zoom allowed all of your family and friends from across the state and across the country to take part. And that's what we hope continues, even though we will get back in the courtroom. We hope that we continue to use these technologies to share these experiences. Is there anything that could have been better, or that you feel we can help change for the next person in your shoes?
Gosh, I think some of the changes would lie in the actual certification process as far as becoming an adoptive parent. Maybe even have a different track for purely adoptive parents versus foster parents. There's quite a bit of red tape, and I'm not going to lie and say, like, when I put my policymaker hat on, I have a lot of ideas that I think could be changed just to simplify the process, just to make it easier for caseworkers, because I think sometimes in some of the processes for certification and requirements were a little bit burdensome on the caseworkers, where they didn't really even know why they were doing them. It was just that my answer was, oh, well, the state requires it. It's a state law. So maybe that's where I feel we could do a little bit better, because I know that sometimes maybe parents don't want to go through the process because it is so time consuming and hard. And I understand the purposes behind it, but I do see some areas where we could make changes to still ensure we have the best possible parents applying, but yet make it a little bit easier for them.
Well, thank you for sharing that as well. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for I know it's very busy for you right now, and thank you for accepting our invitation to join us. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to share with Jen before she leaves our meeting.
This is
wanted
right.
to
Well,
share
again, thank you.
something,
Oh, I'm
Justice
sorry.
Guzman. I just wanted to share something. I wanted to thank Ms. Sines, Jen, for bringing into light how important TBRI is, because it's not only important for the permanent placement, the placement, adoptive placement, but also I think it's so important for the foster care placements so that those homes will not be disrupted. That can assist foster care placements as well. So I just wanted to thank you so much for bringing that to light. I think that was excellent. Your presentation was excellent.
Agree.
Jen,
Anyone-
Justice Guzman. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, Jen, your story is very touching. I would love to meet with you sometime and we can look at some of those things that are maybe cumbersome or can be streamlined to make the adoption easier.
I would love to do that too. And again, that's to anyone. I'd be happy to speak with anyone, meet with anyone, share my story, share my talents, anything you need. I'm definitely passionate about this issue, and I think we can all do some great things. So please feel free, call me, text me, friend me on Facebook. You can see more pictures.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
Justice Guzman, I just wanted to reiterate what Jen said about all of the training as a foster parent that you get about trauma, and that when that child walks in your door, they have trauma, but there's really little training about what to do when they come.
I agree, and I think that it's inspiring for all of our commissioners and everyone to make change and effectuate change, that it's working, but we can do more and we can do better. So thank you. Also, Judge Brown, for that observation.
Judge Guzman,
Anyone else?
Justice Guzman, yes.
Yes.
The whole piece of, well, first, Jen, thank you so much for your presentation. It was spot on in so many areas, and thank you for your love, your commitment, and your perseverance through the process. The piece where you talk about someone talked about the over-medicalization of trauma, of hard lives in a different conversation. And Jen's conversation talks about and referenced again how often medicine is used. We have a pharmacological approach to a behavioral or traumatic issue. And I think, as Judge Mireles said, and Judge Brown also just kind of referenced, it's like we have to figure out a better way to equip foster parents and everybody involved in the child welfare system in a trauma-based approach to the behavioral interventions that are needed, so that we don't end up using medicine to substitute for relationship and for processing that needs to happen in these young people.
Agreed. Thank you, Vicki. Anyone else?
So, yes, Justice Guzman.
Yes.
Really quickly, I just wanted to echo Judge Mireles and also Miss, is it Sands?
Signs.
Signs. Okay, I apologize. Regarding TBRI, I did not realize how much you could actually get from that training. And so during some of my downtime, I actually did take advantage because they were offering free sessions. So I did the entire course, and I think it was 8 to 10 hours or something like that. But there's a lot of information there. As a judge, I'm not a foster parent, but it's information that I felt could be very useful to people who are considering fostering, and definitely adoptive parents. And so that is one avenue that we definitely should continue to go down in terms of guiding our parents, adoptive foster parents, as far as trauma training. So that is there. And again, thank you so much for what you've done in your patience and perseverance. I also have a really good friend who wants to tell her story. She's like, I need to get my story out about this system because I wanted to adopt, and I did, but it was so draining that I just don't know if I want to do it again. And so I think that, we have people who are willing, and we need to make sure we don't lose those people by making the system so difficult that it's just overburdensome and overwhelming for them. So
That's exactly right. And thank you so much again for having me.
Very true. Thanks, Judge Graves Harrington. And let us know. We always welcome guests to educate us, inspire us, and illuminate what we could do better. So we'd be happy to host. Anyone else? All right, Jen, thanks again. Ms. Sines, thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend with Zoe and Karma. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. And so again, that was wonderful and beautiful. And thanks to Jamie Bernstein for helping coordinate all of this. And
Excuse me, Judge Guzman, this is LaWanna Barton with Senator West's office. And I have been on the line listening to you all morning and just want to say thank you from State Senator Royce West, who had anticipated being on the call, but is juggling between finance and the ERCOT meeting hearing this morning. He wanted to make certain that he mentioned that during this week in finance, Article 2 came up, which was Health and Human Services. And he did address and question FPS and Child Protective Services and so forth about their financial needs. And if what was being proposed as a budget would be able to provide them the funds that they needed to do what they need to do for the children of Texas. And so he asked a lot of questions, and a lot of the answers that he needed, they couldn't answer. So he has asked for additional information about what's going on with their programs, why there seems to be a disproportionate number of children of color, and so forth. So there are a lot of things that are going on. He has the kinship care legislation that he filed and passed several years ago. And so there's going to be some fine tuning of some of those things. So should he need some assistance from you or to have your organization look at the legislation, the young lady, Lauren Cacho on our staff, our Ledge Council and General Counsel and Legislative Director will send that information to you. But just to let you know that he's not here because he couldn't be here, but he wanted to make sure that you knew that this was so important that he would have a staffer, his chief of staff, on the line listening to you guys. And I heard you talk about the foster care parent trauma training. I'm pretty sure he would, want more information on that to look at it for possible inclusion in what happens for the kinship care parent. Just imagine being a grandmother and having a grandchild who's gone through the system and had all these different issues, be able to come back to the family, which they say is very good, but what kind of trauma is that child going to have coming back to the family that maybe another family member may be able to benefit from this trauma training? So I put a little note on the side so that I could have the related staffer to get that information. But we do sincerely appreciate your commitment to the children and the legal processes of Texas.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barton, and thank you for joining us on the call. We appreciate Senator West, his leadership, his support. He is a longtime collaborator with the Children's Commission and leader in many, many arenas, and also in this area. With respect to the legislation, we are a resource. We thank you for looking to us for guidance. Our Juriston residents, Judge Rob Hoffman, now Judge Piper McCraw, are speaking for them, but I know they agree, at your disposal to assist in any way that you or Senator West may desire or need. And again, thank you so much. And please pass along our thanks to Senator West for his support. And thank you, especially, again, it's a legislative session and we know you're super busy as well. So thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, and then we will move on to Judge Mireles.
Good morning, soon to be afternoon. I wanted to go ahead and tell you what we're working on. I have 4 different counties that I preside over. In Duval County, I recently met with CASA volunteers and a lot of their staff members and supervisors. They had brought to my attention some concerns that they had regarding the possibility of over-medication of foster children. And because of the fact that I went ahead and attended the Texas Lawyers for Children seminar regarding possible over-medication of foster children and what type of ideas they gave us to address these particular issues, I went ahead and thought it would be a good idea for me to meet with them because I saw several of them on the session. So I thought it was refreshing to see that they were on the session and that they were watching and that they were interested. So I realized that there was a need and a concern, and I went ahead and thought it would be a good idea for us to come up with ideas of how we can deal with this before it happens in our court. And so we came up with ideas what we could implement in the event that we see this, and types of things that we discussed and we thought would be good to implement was, now that we have Zoom and people can participate through Zoom, we thought it would be a good idea if the psychiatrist allowed for the parents to attend the psychiatric assessments. Then the parents should attend to be able to provide the history of the parents' mental needs, as well as the children's mental needs prior to being in foster care, and how we could work towards meeting the child's mental needs and take into consideration the parents' previous history. In addition to that, I also, in Webb County, I'm working towards a project named the Trafficking Emergency Network Diversion. It's abbreviated as TEND, T-E-N-D, which is a diversion court program that we're trying to implement in Webb County to address the needs of commercially exploited victims. The proposed project aims to create a coordinated network response to identify, protect, and assist youth and young adult victims of sex trafficking in Laredo and Webb County. This diversion court will tend to the needs of youth and young adults who are or likely to be victims of sex trafficking. This TEND court, or TEND diversion court, will divert youth and young adults who are facing commercial sexual exploitation away from the criminal system. We are coordinating our efforts along with several relevant agencies and social service providers. We're working towards pre-arrest and pre-trial diversion programs from a trauma-informed, victim-centered approach. The social service providers that TEND will be collaborating with will include the district attorney's office, a local domestic violence shelter, substance abuse counseling through SCAN, an organization that offers equine therapy, the Children's Advocacy Center, our county attorney's office, our district court, as well as TAMU, which is Texas A&M International University. We were blessed to have Dr. Francis Burnett come up with this idea and really coordinate with us as to how we all came up with how we were going to collaborate. And she's volunteered her assistance in overseeing the collection and analysis of all data collected by the district's office on victims and the court processes and the services provided. So this initiative, if it does get accepted for funding, will develop and implement a new drop-in center, summer educational programs for minor victims at Texas A&M International University. They're also, TAMU, which is Texas A&M International University, is looking at implementing a new master's certificate for lawyers, counselors, and criminal justice workers. So the goal for this program will be to fill in the gaps in the institutional systems of responding to youth at risk of commercial exploitation by coordinating an effort to identify, protect, and respond in a culturally and victim-sensitive manner. So I will keep you posted as to how our efforts progress, and I cede my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Morales, for all of your work on many fronts. You're one of our stars in our state and in the child welfare arena, and we just appreciate your dedication and your commitment. Does anyone have anything to share with Judge Morales?
I do, very briefly, I hope. Judge Morales, I was a kinship placement after I had CPS involvement. That's a whole different story. However, the child that came into my home with no less than probably 5 or 6 diagnoses. And he was on so many medications that I literally had to have like a schedule of what to take when. But as he was in my home, he came in at 14, I believe, and he didn't leave until he was 18. But while he was in my home, he expressed to me that he didn't want to be on all those medications. And so I'll talk to his psychiatrist. We talked, and they were like, well, no, he has to be on them because they had diagnosed him. And so I'm not suggesting this to anybody, but I am my own person. And so he and I came together and I was like, these are the things that have to happen in order for you to show them that you don't need this medication. By the time this young man left my house, he was on one medication for ADHD, and he did have severe ADHD, but many of his diagnoses were done. I was not there for the assessment, so I'm not trying to say they didn't do it right, but when they did it, he was in a place of trauma because he had been removed from his family. And so when you assess me when I'm in a place of trauma, that assessment really is not valid because it's temporary. You may get some good information, but some of that information won't be valid a month from now. And so we found out, like I said, by the time he left my house, he was on one medication for his ADHD. And so I know you mentioned including the parents in on the psych eval, but I would say even after that, making sure that the psychiatrists are willing, and some of them are, but make sure that they are willing to talk with the placement wherever they are to see, because a lot of times, I forget who it was, and I'm sorry, I think it was Miss Vicky Spriggs said, they're medicating for behavior, and we don't need to do that. We really need to deal with the behavior and medicate for other things, because there are reasons for medication. So I love the fact that this is being brought up. Like I said, he had so many medications, I was overwhelmed. And he didn't need them. Eventually, we found out he really didn't need them. He was in a trauma area at the time that they did the assessment. Once everything got normalized, and I do this because, I don't know what normal is, but once things got normalized, some of those behaviors and things just dropped off. And kudos to you all that are working on that. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Bibb Samuels. Thank you so much. All right. So if we don't have any other comments for Judge Morales, we will now hear from a dear friend and new appellate, relatively new appellate justice, Robbie Partida Kipnis. Justice Kipnis.
Hello. I don't have anything new to update. Us over here at the Fifth Court of Appeals, we're going and blowing still. We've kept our dockets moving. I know that the family courts are hard at work pushing forward, and they're conducting, many of their hearings via Zoom. But that's about it. We're all just surviving, and we're doing our best up here in Dallas. So thank you to everybody. I've really enjoyed all the presentations today. And thank you, as always, Justice Guzman, for your leadership. And welcome, Judge Ferguson.
All right. Well, thank you, Judge Partida Kipnis. And I don't know if Katie Olds is still on the Zoom. Again, my ability to see everyone has been greatly reduced. So are you here?
Well, sorry, Justice Guzman. This is Audrey Carmichael. I am here as a proxy for Katie. And so I will just give a very brief update because I certainly am no true stand-in for Katie. But she is down at the Capitol still waiting to testify in Senate Finance. So I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be here. I have known many of you in my prior role at DFPS, but I'm very excited to join the Alliance. I don't know if Katie will have me come back since I cried twice during my first time here. So just first when y'all were talking about Judge Rucker leaving, and then second when Jen did her really incredible presentation. So I would just say Judge Rucker has, whether he knew it or not, been a mentor to me and somebody I've always really admired. So I'm glad I got to be here for that. Our updates are very brief, just there's a lot going on, but we just wanted to highlight, of course, a lot of our members are really still kind of reeling from the winter storm. We had many without power, without water, working to secure food and warmth for kids in residential operations and in foster homes. And we are just really grateful that we were able to work with the Office of the Governor, HHSC, and DFPS to elevate some of those really critical needs and get those quickly met. And of course, thankful for community support. We've gotten support from Tesla to Athleta to, we started a little fund that's on our webpage for just people who want to help get some care to direct to our members who are still just working to recover from that very traumatic storm. And then we are excited to be working with Jocelyn. This is the royal we, because I'm newer to this piece, but on the implementation plan for the statewide portal about trauma-informed care. I know that was a recommendation and then a concept paper, and a ton of work went into that. And so I think we're still working with Jocelyn to help realize that, and we'll give regular updates to the task force. And I think that is it. I know we have a lot to get through. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Audrey, I think, and for being here and for really appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone have anything? All right, we have about 4 more commissioner updates, and we'll go through those now. Judge Frank Rindge from Houston. I thought I saw Judge Rindge on the screen earlier. We may have lost him.
He's here, he may have stepped away.
Yeah, we can come back. Judge Michael Snyder.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I want to start by thanking Judge Rucker for all his service, but also thank everybody for the wonderful tributes. How awesome is that to have all this? Second, I wanted to briefly talk about, I'm glad that everybody is enjoying the possibility of the use of Zoom as much as I am, whether it's representing foster parents or parents or doing mediations. It's been very helpful, especially in getting witnesses from around the country that we normally wouldn't be able to have. But I was also very happy to hear Judge Brown talking about a focus on really moving the cases along. Without talking about any specific cases, I have some cases that are now more than 2 years old where I think everybody is ready for the case to get over, and there's just not, with a lot of the very much needed extensions, there still seems to be a little bit not as much incentive to really move things along. So I'm really happy to hear that that is a priority. I also want to talk very briefly about the project that, thanks to Dylan, is really moving along, which is our idea in the data committee of sort of merging, if you will, the CPCMS database with the CPS impact system. And this is an idea that for years, and not only Dylan, but also the tech folks at FPS and within the courts have been just fantastic. And it's interesting today, and one of the things that really inspired me to try and make this happen is the data that I've observed within the CPCMS, specifically regarding medication. If you look at the percentage of kids who are on psychotropic medications in, say, facilities versus foster homes versus relative placement, it's so obvious that in the more home-like the environment is, the less likely the kids are to be on medication. Now, I mean, part of that might be that you have more kids with more serious issues in who are in the more serious placements, but still, I think there has to be a strong correlation between the amount of attention kids get in placement and how traumatic their placement is. And I thought Ms. Bibb Samuels made a absolutely fantastic observation that's so relevant, that we need to look at when these kids are evaluated. If they are being evaluated in a shelter versus in grandma's house, you're going to probably have a very different diagnosis and need for medication. And in a lot of these cases, we're putting some of the kids are being put on medications that we take kids away from their parents for having, even though they have the exact identical clinical effect on them. Specifically, there's been research done at Columbia that there's really no difference between methamphetamine and between Adderall, except that one is taken orally and one is usually taken in a manner that gets into your system quicker. But anyway, I'm so thankful to Dylan to help on the CPMS stuff. I would also, and this also goes to the drug issues, I would suggest for anybody who deals with CPS cases, whether it's as a caseworker or a judge or an attorney, to check out a book that just came out in January by Dr. Carl Hart called Drug Use for Grownups. It actually talks about the fact that a lot of CPS related issues, there's even a focus on the juvenile courts in Harris County and how they deal with drug issues. So it just came out on Penguin Press early January, definitely worth checking out. I would also, for people who are interested in a very in-depth report on one specific CPS case, back in October and November, NBC News and Wondery had a 6-part series called Do No Harm that focused on a specific CPS case in which they were fined about $130,000. And it's a really fascinating look at the whole CPS system, but specifically how referrals are made and how CPS makes decisions on picking up kids versus not. So with that, it's great to see everybody, and thank you for having me.
Justice Guzman, you're still muted.
Thank you very much. As I was saying, thank you when no one heard me. Thank you, Judge Snyder, for your insights. And I was saying maybe you could email the links or the name of the book that you have suggested to Jamie, and she'll get it out to the rest of us. If
I will send the link regarding both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. And does anyone have any questions or comments for Judge Snyder? And
Judge Snyder, it's interesting you bring up the amphetamines and Adderall issue. I had a young lady in court several years ago, and she tested positive on one of her UAs for cocaine. When she came before me, I asked her, I said, "You're in the middle of a CPS case. Why would you test positive for cocaine?" And she said, "It's cheaper than Adderall. I'm just telling you, it's cheaper."
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and there is an overlap in the things that I talked about. The person who wrote the book that I'm recommending, Drug Use for Grownups, is the person who actually did the double-blind study where they took regular meth users gave them Adderall and did objective and subjective testing, meaning subjective, how do you feel? How does it, can you tell the difference between this and this? But also things like heart rate and very objective things. There was no difference in effect between those two. I mean, think how many kids are in foster care now who are taking this supplied by the state and were taken away from their parents because their parents had this substance in their system.
Judge Schneider, I'll tell you that something that I learned after all of these years of practice and didn't learn until I got on the bench, that there are actually some medications that are prescribed that do show up as illegal drugs in drug test. And when I had a parent to tell me this, of course, because I had not been properly trained on it and I had my implicit biases, which I had to learn to address, I didn't believe it. But then we had a medical officer that actually came in and testified to the fact that there are definitely psychotropic drugs that show up as illegal drugs in drug tests. And so that's something that we all have to be careful of, because of course, in our parenting plans, one of the things parents are enjoying from doing is using illegal drugs. And if they're taking medication that's prescribed to them and it's showing up as illegal drugs, and they don't have the wherewithal or the money, or their attorneys don't know to ask for this medical officer opinion, then they're really kind of stuck with what we call dirty UA or hair follicle test, which negatively impacts their process. And one other thing I want to also address is that Harris County, we definitely have a priority for moving our cases. And I'm glad that Judge Brown brought that up. But we're in a unique position of, do we just want permanency for the children, or do we want positive permanency? And so because of COVID, some things have had to slow down. The therapist sessions, just a lot of things that children need and families need that they have not been able to get. And so do we want to close the cases out without these families actually receiving all of the treatments that they need? Or do we want to gear more towards positive permanency, which unfortunately may take a little bit longer? And I know we hate that, being under the purview of court decisions that have come down. We don't want children languishing in the system. We don't want families going that are not being reunified. But we want it to be in a positive manner that we are actually resolving these cases. And so, unfortunately, it does take a little longer than what we actually all wish it would.
Justice Guzman, if I could add one
Yes,
thing on that.
of course.
For those of you who are still unsure or doubting whether what they're saying about the drugs and the drug tests are true, I actually confirmed it because I had someone who tested positive on a 5-panel in my courtroom, and I held him in contempt. And what I do is I then clean them up. I put them in jail for a few days till I know it's out of their system, and I bring them back. And he was adamant that he was taking nothing illegal, and he had a prescription bottle. And I said, I'm going to help you prove this to me. So I gave him 10 days and I instructed the jail to ensure that the only medication he got was this bottle of pills in accordance with the label. And I brought him back in 10 days and tested him again, and he tested positive on a UA for the same substance. So I consider for me that to be a definitive test result that bottle triggered a meth and amphetamine positive in a UA for that gentleman. And I let him out and I said, you're right. And thank you for letting me know. So be careful. I know they all give us the same story, but be careful. There are in fact some medications prescribed that will trigger the biggie, the meth positive result on a 5-panel UA. Thank you, Justice Guzman.
Thank you, Judge Ferguson. That's an excellent point, and probably something that we really need to get across to the caseworkers, as they work with these families and with the court system. And Judge Ferguson, you went above and beyond to ensure that the truth prevailed in your courtroom. That may not be the case in all courtrooms. So it really is incumbent upon judicial leaders and also that we train our caseworkers to really be aware of this. So thank you both, Judge Graves Harrington and Judge Ferguson. We'll hear from Judge Shelton. Randy, there you are.
Thank you. We've been doing a lot of Zoom trials, of course. I don't have just CPS, but I was just kind of giving an estimate, but I bet we probably do about 150 a month. So it's just overwhelming. I am a little concerned about the jury trials for CPS cases. They're really starting to pile up a bit, and I'm getting a little nervous about that July cutoff date. We just started jury trials in Jefferson County. Well, we actually start on March the 1st, and trying to hold the criminal judges off from snatching up all the juries is really tricky. But hopefully things will get better and we can resolve the jury trials. I think I mentioned last time that we were starting our domestic violence victims recovery program, and we implemented it. We are identifying women in CPS cases that are victims of domestic violence. And whereas before everyone seems to get sent to anger management, we're now referring them to our local women's shelter for non-residential counseling, and that's individual and group. We just finished our first group, and we're trying to collect some data to see how that program is going to fare. We hope that we can expand. I think we are already in the works of trying to expand that program more regionally. I'm trying to work with some of my colleagues in surrounding counties, but that's the direction we're looking. Also, we're looking to try to bring that program into the jail at some point, because apparently there are victims of domestic violence in jail, and that's after that, we started looking at what we can do for dads the perpetrator dads in these cases. Again, they were always sent to anger management, but I was thinking that probably, since it does involve intimate partner violence, that a BIP program would be more appropriate. So we started referring those guys into the BIP program, and the local agency's happy because it's they're getting more referrals. And I know you guys think that we're probably in the sticks a bit, but I started realizing, well, maybe I should start sending women, that are perpetrators of domestic violence to the BIP program. I've been sending women to the BIP program for years under civil protective orders. So I started conferring with the agency that deals with that. We'll come to find out we've never had a women's BIP program. I didn't know there was even a difference, but apparently there is. But so they've gone ahead and just starting at the first of the year, they have implemented a women's BIP program. So we're pretty excited because a lot of times, guys underreport, violence, especially by their partners. So now we've got an avenue for that. In addition, we're trying to look at doing an assessment for everyone that comes into CPS, into the system, for anger management and BIP and victims recovery. Also, I asked the counselor at that handles all the BIP programs and the anger management if she could come up with a sort of a sheet, to kind of compare the programs, like a bench card. I love bench cards. And we're working on it. So I might have something that I can share with all of you with her permission sometime in the future that distinguishes the difference between men's BIP, women's BIP, and anger management. And sadly, and I'm almost ashamed to admit this too, when looking at this, we come to realize we never even had a Spanish language BIP program. So the agency has my domestic violence agency has hired someone that speaks Spanish, and so he's up and he's ready to go. I think our next step is we're trying to look at, and I know that trauma-informed care is probably would be appropriate for children, looked after children who are also in the household during these domestic violence incidents. But we're trying to look at maybe some other programs that would just target those kids. The other thing, I hope you guys don't. I'm usually more of a taker than a giver, at least in this commission. But I'm also run into another problem, and I'm sure someone out there has a solution. But I'll just share it. But all of a sudden, I've realized that I've got a lot of underage moms, in these CPS cases, and presumably dads. And what I realize, I don't always catch the ages because, I'm not very good at math anyway. I might see their birth dates, but it never clicks. But and I kind of had a bit of a scare when I realized it the other day, because we were, virtually all the way through the case when I realized and that I had an underage mother. So then I got concerned about, well, maybe a guardian ad litem or something would be appropriate. I called around. I really couldn't find, and I called, some judges that are a lot smarter than I am, but I really never could find any real guidance. So I looked, someone suggested in the family code in section 107, it talks about, appointing, ad litems and guardians for children. I mean, I know that it probably means children that are subject of the case, but I guess you could interpret that to mean even children, who are the parents. So that was a little bit of, that was kind of my basis. Then I started looking at the rules of civil procedure, and I haven't practiced civil law in 25 years, but, I kind of remember something about, using a next friend in particular cases. Well, I asked around a bit, and sure enough, that could be an issue, I suppose, because minors do not have the right to contract. I'm not even sure they have the right to consent to some of the services or the treatment that they're receiving in these cases. And worse, I'm not really sure that service is valid on a minor, without an ex-friend. So I'm still trying to, work through that. But if anyone has any information, or a good article or something, or I don't know, maybe that might be a project that the commission might take on, but maybe some real guidance about what to do with underage parents in CPS case. To make it even worse, my last two that were underage, the mothers were actually sex trafficking victims. So now I got underage mothers in a CPS case that are sex trafficking victims. And so I'm way over my head now. So anyway, that's all. That's my report. I ran a little overtime and I apologize.
Not at all. Thank you, Judge Shelton, for your report. And I'm glad that you've implemented the Spanish language training. And with respect to the underage mothers, I know there are a lot of resources on this commission. And if anyone has some ideas specifically for Judge Shelton, or more forward-looking with whether we need to address this issue as a commission through a task force, but human trafficking victims, underage, and mothers. On top of that, that's a lot for these young people to deal with. And I'm glad that you, Judge, are undertaking a closer examination, and let us know how we can help. Anyone have anything? I see Dylan with his hand up, I think, and also Judge. Well, let's hear from Judge Alvarado and then Dylan.
Just on your first point, Judge Shelton, concerning the backup with the CPS trials, Bexar County has started actually doing the virtual jury trials. Today's trial that we have going on will be our 6th trial in Bexar County. One of the trials so far has been a CPS trial. It was a 2-week-long termination case. Judge Mary Lou Alvarez was the judge that presided over that case. And certainly if you're considering implementing virtual trials in your jurisdiction, particularly as it relates to the CPS cases because of the concern to get these cases heard, she would be a fabulous resource, and I would be happy to connect the two of you together so you could start that dialogue. Next week, we have 2 CPS cases that are set to go to trial as well. And that's what we're seeing right now is, just by way of example, I had 3 CPS cases for next week, but we only have enough juror summons for 2 trials. So 2 of them are going to go, but it's also a very good opportunity to continue to push them to mediation and to continue to keep working those cases. So what we're seeing happen is, even though we might have 4 or 5 cases that are CPS cases set to go to trial on a Monday, 3 or 4 of them are resolving themselves on their own at this point, because it's forcing these cases to have to be worked up in anticipation of trial. So just a suggestion, if you would like, I'd be happy to make that connection for you. And then secondly, I would be very interested in getting your BIP bench card whenever it's done.
It's for sale in the gift shop.
All right, thank you, Judge Alvarado. Dylan.
Oh, I just had a quick comment regarding your question about whether or not when you're dealing with issues of minor parents, I do believe there is some case law that when the parent is a minor, that their parent must be served. It's not enough just to serve the minor, it's their parent or guardian also must be served.
Right.
I can try to help you find the case law on that.
Yeah, well, actually, I did find that, but my problem is these kids aren't living there, especially the sex trafficking moms. They're not living with their parents anyway. So I'm really, but yes, I'm open to any suggestions, and I'm not necessarily volunteering for anything, mind you, but I will. I wish I had a staff attorney. I mean, here, but anyway, and Judge Rosie, we have thought about the virtual trials, and I'm probably the closest one that's even willing to give it a shot, at least in this county, and I am thinking about that. But the other problem is we have to send out 2,000 summonses to get 50 people. I mean, that's like a 2.5%. Especially now is open as they are about, or being more open-minded about, jurors objecting to serving because of, concerns about health and COVID and all that other stuff. I'm not even sure I can find and I hate to have a CPS trial in the middle of a, movie theater, but honestly, I don't even think I was just measuring the biggest courtroom in this courthouse, rather, Judge Thorne's actually, and with my 6 foot, my 6 foot stick. And I mean, I can't find that. You got to have 144 square feet to have the 6 foot distance around everybody. We'll multiply that by 13. Plus we've got, attorneys for the agency and an agency representative and the kid, and ad litem or ad litems, parents. I've got 1.5 fathers for every case. So that means I might have two dads, 2 attorneys, and 1 for the mom. I mean, I'm just literally, I just don't have a space. I may have to get a circus tent or something.
Right. No, I agree. And I think different communities around the state pose different challenges, even for judges that are willing to do the virtual trials and jury trials. And fortunately, to the extent the vaccine will make a difference, I have heard very encouraging news about, the ability to vaccinate more Americans, more Texans. So Judge Shelton, thanks again, and keep trying for those virtual jury trials. And I thought I saw Judge Ferguson wanting to say something. Did you?
I think David Slayton was going to address the issue about the percentage of people and what we've actually seen on response to the summonses. So David, was that for you?
Justice Guzman, are you okay if I speak to that real fast?
Are you going to do your other update also?
I'm getting some of these things out that I won't have to do on my update, if that's okay, while it's relevant here.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, we can hear your update now. I just want to make sure we're all done by 1. So if you're going to take some time up, why don't you do your update? And then we're going to hear from Luann Southern and then Jamie Bernstein, and then we'll all stay on track. So David, the floor is yours, and we'll take your update also.
I'll see if I can do this in 3 minutes.
Don't worry.
So just on the jury trial issue, it's a good point, and Judge Ferguson and I were sort of texting back and forth here. Just so you know, there have been 3 fully virtual jury trials in CPS cases in the state as of today, and obviously there'll be more next week. 2 in Judge Karen Crump's court, and that Judge Karen Crump has overseen, and then the 1 in Bexar County. And they've all gone off without a hitch. And to Judge Shelton's point, we've actually seen similar situations in many of our counties about in-person jury service where the number of people showing up has gone down. But with virtual jury service, the numbers have exploded. People responding to virtual jury service is much, much higher than in-person jury service. Judge Ferguson sent me a stat that in his county, they went from a 13% response rate to over 50%. And I know Travis County, it went from like 40-ish to 80. Bexar County is seeing similar things. And so there is a way to do that, and it seems to be going well. And certainly I would just put this out there for anyone, any of the judges on here. or anybody watching, that if you need any assistance with a virtual jury trial, please reach out to us at OCA and we'll help you. We'll provide equipment to you to give to the jurors. I mean, everything you need. One other thing I want to say as far as my update is, for those of you speaking about Zoom, I want to just tell you all what I've been telling you for months, which is that we are renewing all the licenses to Zoom that we provided. OCA will continue to provide those probably forever, in my opinion, but at least for the next year. So we've asked for funding from the legislature for that, but we understand the importance that we'll figure out a way to do it. So hopefully we'll get the funding from the legislature, but that's really important. I want to point out that Senate Bill 690 has been filed by Senator Zaffarini and will soon be filed in the House as well. And that bill allows for the continuation of remote hearings so that the barriers, statutory barriers would be removed. There's some edits that need to happen on that bill, but in case any of you are interested in that, you might want to take a look at that. And then last, I would just say on a legislative front, budgetary perspective, we'll be presenting our budget before the House Appropriations Committee next week. And we did so with the Senate a few days ago. But one of the things that's a big concern for us is that the 5% cut to OCA's budget included cuts to the Child Protection Court travel budget. And while that works great whenever when they're able to do everything remotely, whenever they begin to have to do in-person hearings again for certain things in the future, there's no travel money in our budget. So it's a real concern for us. So we'll certainly be working on that, but I just want to make you all aware of that situation. And with that, I'll turn back over and answer any questions, but otherwise cede back anytime I have.
Thanks so much, David, for your leadership and all you do. And does anyone have any questions for David Slayton? All right. Well, hearing no questions, again, thanks so much. And thanks for joining us and being with us throughout the meeting today. So we appreciate that. And thank you to all of our commissioners for your flexibility in the way we've moved things around a little bit to stay on track. And so Vicki Spriggs with CASA had to leave early. We'll make an announcement for her at the end of the meeting. But we also have Luann Southern here. And Luann, thanks for your patience. We're looking forward to your update.
Well, I actually volunteered to Jamie. I told her I'd be more than happy to pass so that for the sake of time. But I'll just give a very brief update. Maybe next time we have a meeting, I could actually give a presentation about the Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium and all of the work that we're doing with the support of the Texas legislature during the last session. The one thing I will provide an update on relating to the consortium has to do with, as many of you have talked about previously, there is always crossover systems issues. Children and families involved in the child welfare system also have mental health needs. And one of the areas that we know we have a shortage in Texas is specific to child psychiatry. And our consortium is actively working to link child psychiatry with pediatric practices and primary care practices across the state. Many children in Texas, not unlike other states, are receiving their behavioral health care through primary care providers. And so our Child Psychiatry Access Network provides a 1-888 number for primary care physicians to directly access child psychiatric consultations for children that they are seeing within their primary care practices. And those pediatric practices are linked directly with regional child psychiatrists that are located within all of the Texas health science centers, the academic institutions across our state. And we had the opportunity to provide information about that particular initiative with the Superior Health Plan folks about a month ago to let them know that our child psychiatrists would be available to pediatric practices that are part of their provider network for youth in foster care if they needed psych consults. And those are provided to those pediatric physicians. So that's all I'll say about that at this moment, but I'm more than happy to provide more information about the other 4 efforts we have going on through the consortium.
Thank you, Luann. We look forward to a more formal presentation then on all that you're doing, and we'll try to schedule that for the next meeting. Anyone have any comments or questions for Luann Southern? we appreciate that. We heard from Ms. Barton, Chief of Staff for Senator Royce West earlier, and unless you have anything else to add, Ms. Barton, we will go on with the meeting. All right. You might recall that at our September meeting, I announced that Sheila Craig had been appointed as Equity Advisor to the Children's Commission. She serves as chair of our Equity Work Group, and unfortunately, Sheila had a unexpected emergency, had to travel to Dallas and just couldn't be here today. So we will get an update from her next meeting. Justice Michael Massengale, former Justice Michael Massengale of the First Court of Appeals, serves as our senior judicial advisor, and he continues to support the commission's work and the Child Protection Law Book. We appreciate him, his continued service, and he had to leave the meeting at noon, so we will hear from him next time. If you'll turn to tab 3 in your PDF workbooks, we will now have the update from our Executive Director, Jamie Bernstein, and also hear from our other commission team. So Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Justice Guzman. And as is the order of the day, we're going to adapt here on the fly, and I think we'll probably forego the staff updates. As Justice Guzman referred you to the commission report, we have extensive details and updates on all of our projects there. It's on page 25 of PDF that you got. So apologize. I can promise you that the updates that we prepared were amazing, so you'll just have to trust me on that. And if you want more details, you can go to that PDF. But just while I have the floor, I would be remiss if I didn't thank each and every one of you for your unwavering leadership and strength, especially in these complex times that we're all facing these days. I also, as a point of privilege, just really want to acknowledge the tremendous contributions of each member of our staff. I can say that we have not scaled back. If anything, we're busier than ever. I'm very proud of this team and extremely honored to lead it. Just a few very brief highlights, because I want to make sure we have time for Denine's presentation on DFPS. The annual report was released to the Supreme Court earlier this year. We did change it to a fiscal year reporting period, and it is available on the Children's Commission website. Jessica Arguijo and her team did a fantastic job putting it together, and just want to thank her. I'll also mention that behind tab 4 of the meeting notebook is our financial report. So you can see all the up-to-date figures and numbers. And some of you may have heard that there were some changes to our grant recently. They're combining 3 into 1, the basic data and training grants into one CIP grant. It won't affect the amount that we receive, but it will make things a lot easier for Patrick and Willette on our team. We also heard that there will be some emergency funding available through the most recent Consolidated Appropriations Act, and we are awaiting federal program instructions on what the formula funding will yield for Texas and how those monies are to be used. So we will certainly have updates, hopefully, at our May commission meeting, and we'll be excited to share those with you about what our vision is for using those additional funds. I also wanted to mention that we'll be working toward our 5-year strategic plan that's due to the Children's Bureau in June. And so we'll be really close to that mark when we come back to you in May. So we'll be able to share a lot of those details. And with that, I will yield the floor back to you, Justice Guzman.
You're still on mute, Judge.
Thank you very much, Jamie, and thank you for leading our Children's Commission staff. You guys have been incredibly productive and have not missed one step during the onset of the pandemic. So I know we're all proud at the court and as commissioners of the work that you do. Thank you. We will move on to Collaborative Council member input, and we had requested written reports from Collaborative Council members in advance. They're included in the notebook that you have. We received submissions from Mary Christine Reed on behalf of Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid Foster Youth Justice Project, and also Barbara Elias Percival on behalf of Texas Lawyers for Children. We also asked the Collaborative Council to submit a yellow card, as we typically do when we meet in person, if they wanted to speak at the meeting. And I think that we have one from Barbara Elias Percival with Texas Lawyers for Children. And if you are still on our Zoom meeting, Barbara, we welcome your update.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad to have an opportunity to give you this update about Texas Lawyers for Children. For those who may not know what we do, we are a nonprofit organization that provides training and resources to judges and attorneys handling child abuse cases. And we provide an online legal resource and communication center that has all free resources, legal, medical, and psychological resources, all organized by topic. And for example, Judge Shelton, if you wanted to send us your BIP bench card, we would put it in our resource center and it would be there accessible for everyone to share. So want to give you an update about a new program. And we were fortunate to get a grant from the Office of the Governor in 2019 to develop the curriculum for a 15-hour legal professional trauma training program. And though it's called legal professional, it really applies to everyone who's involved in the court process for foster children. And so over the last year and a half, we've trained over 1,000 judges, attorneys, CASAs, CPS caseworkers, and others on the impact of trauma in children and legal issues that arise because of the impact of trauma. And there is a handout on page 63 of the meeting notebook. I'd love for you to turn there. I just want to point out a couple of things. To borrow the phrase of Jen Sines, I hope in looking at some of this information about the impact that the trauma training has had, we can know that it really is a true game changer for children when the adults working with them understand the impact of trauma on their lives and what to do about it. And so I know many have brought up the issue of overuse of psychotropic medication. I want to just call your attention to the first bullet to let you know about some wide sweeping changes judges around our state are making because of their understanding of trauma. A judge in one county is requiring that all mental health professionals in his court be trained in trauma to ensure that the professionals do not misdiagnose or improperly medicate these children. And that's because the symptoms of trauma overlap with the symptoms of mental disorders. And so there can be a risk of misdiagnosis of these children when the medical and mental health professionals don't have training on trauma. So I just wanted to make you aware of that wide sweeping change in his county. And then recently we were, and you can look at the other bullets of some things that people are doing differently. But we were recently contacted by the chief of the Child Abuse Division in the District Attorney's Office in Taylor County to let us know about changes that they're making so that we could pass along this information to other judges around the state through our online center and in meetings like this. And what they're doing is that because sometimes medical consenters are representatives of the placement facility and maybe the staff of a residential treatment center, there can even be a conflict of interest in what the placement wants versus what's good for the child. The placement, of course, wants to control the child's behavior. That may or may not be the best route for healing the child's trauma or having anything to do with the child's trauma. So what they are now requiring in Taylor County is that the child's attorney and the case manager for the child's case are jointly the medical consenter. And those medical consenters must attend every psychiatric appointment. And also the judges have a standing order that before any child can be put on psychotropic medication, there has to be a hearing first. So those are just some important changes that are happening because of wanting to deal with psychotropic medication. And finally,
Thank you.
Finally, I just want to let you know about some bills. Since you're interested in this topic and it's come up so many times, Representative Lopez has filed House Bill 564, 565, and 566 to require that various people who are working in the lives of traumatized children in the department's care have training on trauma. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elias Percival. We always appreciate hearing from you. And that is the only yellow card that we received for the meeting. So we are going to hear from our jurist in residence report, Judge Rob Hoffman. He has another meeting, very important meeting at 1. So we'll hear from you. We're going to conclude with the update from Associate Commissioner Dryden, and then we'll be adjourning right about 1 o'clock. So Judge Hoffman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Justice Guzman. I appreciate that. I'm hoping that Deneen will tell us about the American Rescue Plan Act and how we've extended funding from age 21 to age 22 for kids in Texas Extended Foster Care in the SIL program. So I hope she's going to tell us a little bit about that. Chief Justice Byrd mentioned the early bird registration for NCJ/FCJ Juvenile Justice Conference that ends today, and thanks to Jamie and the Commission for giving a lot of Texas judges scholarships to go there. Just a couple of other things I wanted to mention. A lot of work is going on in community-based care across the state, and I want everyone to hear today that are watching and listening to us that the department released their new implementation plan in December, and I think it would be well worth anyone's time to review that. We do have another PPP meeting on April 9th, which anyone can log in and review as well. I've been invited to speak at the House Judiciary Committee next week by Representative Leach on the resilience of the Texas judiciary during the pandemic, during our winter storm, and I think specifically with regards to the loss of our courthouse here in Mason County. And so I just want to conclude by thanking everyone, and there were so many of you who reached out to me during that terrible time for our county, and thank you all for the love and prayers and support that you gave us. And I can promise you that we can feel the love and the prayers and the support coming from across the state. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to jump off of this meeting onto my next one. Thank you, Justice Guzman.
Thank you, Judge Hoffman. And yes, we all stand with you and support you in that terrible loss for the county. And Judge McCraw, do you have an update?
I do not have anything further, just honored to take on this role and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service, and thank you for taking on the role. Our last order of business is the update from our Associate Commissioner, and we really appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to hearing your update, Commissioner Dryden.
Thank you. I think for the interest of time, I'm not going to pull up my presentation, and I will just kind of pull out some of the highlights. We all know that with this unprecedented year, our partnerships are more important than ever to meet the needs of our children, families, and youth in Texas. For instance, we collaborated DFPS with the Children's Commission and several tribes. We continue to hold events that address disproportionality, one being the Texas ICWA Summit, where over 1,000 people attended last month. Judge Hoffman discussed the Foster Youth and Families Through the Pandemic Act legislation. This is good news. We have not quite unpacked it all at this point, but we'll get those details out to you as we are not even aware yet of the amount of funding that will bring. But we will continue to communicate and discuss this with you guys as we get more pertinent information. I'm happy to say that in FY21, we are seeing a 10% increase in adoptions of children within 12 months of termination of parental rights. And so we like to see those numbers. When it comes to foster care litigation, we recently, on February 9th, Judge Jack held a status conference with DFPS. Our next scheduled compliance hearing is on May 5th. And I know that all of us agree the ongoing goal of ensuring safety of children in our care will continue to be our #1 priority. As far as a COVID update, I think everyone's been pretty well aware. We do have youth 16 and older that have a qualifying medical condition. They have been included in the DSHS's vaccine prioritization group 1B. We worked with Superior to get those youth identified. Capacity is an issue here in Texas, like many states, and we know that there's a lot of factors that go into the different parts of our capacity issues. We know that foster families had their own issues and had their own family members sick, as well as maybe taking care of elderly parents, and were able to take on maybe extra foster children like they would have during a time like this. We recognize our providers have been affected by COVID with their fundraising efforts and their volunteer services. And even though there was an increase in the total number of RTC providers, overall, we've seen a reduction in the number of treatment beds available to our children. Also, the impact of heightened monitoring on capacity is something that the agency continues to analyze. Initial data suggest a direct connection to a reduction of intakes and admissions of children into general residential operations when that operation is put on the heightened monitoring. And so we continue to look at that. We know there are many challenges and barriers regarding capacity issues. We believe we're bringing people to the table that need to have a voice so we can continue to make progress in this area. I'll just make a really quick update on CBC. When it comes to the stage 1 RFA for Region 8B, we are currently in the procurement process and look forward to executing a contract very soon. So we will keep you updated as that unfolds. When it comes to 8A, we continue to assess readiness for stage 2. I think that's probably the highlights. So thank you.
Well, again, we appreciate you being here and the collaboration. And this is our last update, but it is among our most important updates. And so if anyone has any questions for our Associate Commissioner Dryden, or any comments, please don't let the clock stop you. We have 8 minutes. And so, please engage with our commissioner, and the floor is open to you. Okay, well, you did such an amazing job. We don't have follow-up, but thank you again. And new business, I don't have any unless someone else does. Our next meeting is May the 14th. I saw Judge Robin Sage has been with us throughout the call, and Judge Delia Gonzalez. We appreciate you all. Judge Sage has been in the JIR position and is a longtime friend of our Children's Commission. So thanks, Judge Sage, for being here. And again, Judge Rucker, we're not saying goodbye. We're just going to let you do something else for a little while. But thank you again, and for your wonderful comments and all that you've done. As I said, our next meeting is May the 14th. We are right on schedule. We thank you. We are here. I am here. Our commission team is here for anyone. And so please reach out to us and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And this will conclude this meeting of the Supreme Court of Texas Commission for Children, Youth, and Families. Thank you. Bye-bye.